Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show!
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I am your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of wondrous things with microphones. Chief among them, I'm a ring announcer and MMA cage announcer, and I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two friends who bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing first, joining us from New York, Mark Priaulx. Mark, what's going on?
I feel like that was a more dramatic introduction than usual. I feel like I was getting introduced for a fight.
We're feeling good.
I was into that. Not much, boys. How are we doing?
Feeling good. Feeling good.
I'm excited. We get to recap one massive event and preview another massive event, which is not the norm. So that's pretty dope. And every time that I don't wear a hat, I end up getting on this and saying, shit, I should have worn a hat because the glare from these lights in my office is just completely ridiculous. But oh well.
Mark always steps up the hat game. And joining us from Florida. Cheers. Joining us from Florida, Omar Artola. What's going on, buddy?
Well, I'm drinkless. That's number one.
Oh, come on, man.
Number two, everything's good. I got another round of clinching in yesterday, and I fucking hate clinching. So,
okay.
There's that.
I guess I should ask, how was your guys' Halloween?
So I was expecting a lot more kids to stop by. I have way too much goddamn candy left over. Like way too much. There's like 2 years worth of candy in my pantry right now.
Oh Lord. You should have asked the neighbors, what's it like around here on Halloween?
So that's the whole thing, is my community's brand new. I just kind of figured, I don't know. I grew up in an area where it wasn't normal to trick or treat, because there were no houses. So
yeah, there
are houses here. My immediate assumption is you just fucking go to the houses.
Right.
Apparently not. There was like 5 kids the whole night. And I was
my God.
I was kind of disappointed, to be honest.
Huh.
My neighborhood's crazy. My neighborhood's like a literal mob scene. People, there's never 10 seconds where someone's not at my front door for 3 straight hours.
See, that's what I want. That's what I wanted.
Yeah. My neighborhood's a little old, so we did not have many trick-or-treaters. In fact, I don't think we had any.
Wow.
But also my kid is only 8 months old, so we didn't go out.
Way to suck, guys.
Yeah, it's okay. Mark, what were your kids for Halloween?
Lucas was a Ghostbuster, and
Nice.
Dean was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Nice.
Okay.
Which Ghostbuster?
The main dude. What's his name?
The main
I don't know Ghostbusters.
Peter Venkman.
Yes.
Bill Murray?
Yes.
Okay.
Mark, did you dress up as a Slimer?
Mark has not dressed up in anything since college. That's not on the agenda for me.
Omar, I know that you are a Halloween dress up kind of guy.
Yeah, me and the wife did the Morticia and Gomez Adams bit.
Nice.
As you can see, a lot of my facial hair is gone as of last week.
Very nice.
And I put on a little fake mustache bit here just to make it a little bit creepier, and it worked out. But like I said, we didn't really get to show it off too much because none of these damn kids done come through.
Well, boys, we have quite a lot to get to coming off of a UFC pay-per-view and heading into another one this coming weekend. So let me quickly run down this show. First, we're going to start, as we always do, with our first segment on the marquee. Then we're going to recap some other incredible fights from the stacked card this past weekend at UFC 267. Then we're going to go into our lightning round, which I love. We're going to find out who rose and who fell off of UFC 267 with our very own Priaulx rankings. Then we're going to see what's new inside the MMA sphere. And then we're going to look ahead to this coming weekend's UFC pay-per-view. So with that said, boys, let us first remind our audience, our listeners, and our viewers, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you never miss a video. If you like audio on your commute or while you're folding your laundry, go ahead and find us wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, follow us on social media @andnew_MMA show. With that being said, let us get into our first segment. This is On the Marquee. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Glover Teixeira. Boys. Glover Teixeira, the oldest UFC champion at the age of 42 years old, defeated second oldest. Oh God damn it! Is he the oldest first time champ?
No, Randy
I
Couture.
feel like I heard that. God damn it! I thought
Randy Couture might hold that belt for quite some time.
I believe Couture won it at 43, so only 1 year difference, but then held it till 45, something along those lines.
Okay. Well, he defeated Jan Blachowicz for the UFC light heavyweight title by submission via rear naked choke at 3 minutes and 2 seconds of round number 2. Mark, let me start with you. Glover did it. What is your impressions from Glover's performance?
Exactly that. He did it. 42 years old, 20 years in the game, written off, probably fairly so, by most everyone a few years back. But he did not write himself off, and he keeps going, keeps plugging away, winning fights that people don't think he's going to win. And here he is. He's the champ. It was an awesome moment. So cool to see. He did it in style. Honestly, he looked completely dominant. Like, it was as if Jan had nothing for him. And really, that was the storyline of the fight for me. Like, of course, Glover was great, and he executed a game plan to perfection, but Jan just looked bad. Like, DC said it post-fight. He said Jan looked like he never got out of first gear. And I agree completely. Like, there was no flow to his game. There was no comfort. It looked like he never showed up. And even the way that he so easily gave his back, which we know is a death sentence with Glover Teixeira, and how quickly he tapped. It just, something seemed like it was off. Like, it was almost as if we were watching old Jan who would win some, lose some, as opposed to the Jan who has been this killer that rose to the title. He didn't look confident in there at all. Like, and I know in sports, sometimes you just have an off day, even us, like playing a sport ourselves. Sometimes we're like, God, like, what is wrong with me today? And that's what it looked like from Jan. It just looked like he wasn't clicking. And even the way he discussed it after the fight, where DC was like, what happened in there? And he was like, nothing. Like, I didn't have anything. Like, even he seemed like he was a little thrown off. Like, I just sucked today. So that was kind of the story for me. But so I'm very curious to see how Jan looks in his next fight, honestly, because he has kind of reached this pedestal and he really did not look great. So I'm hoping he bounces back. Yeah. But I don't want to take anything away from Glover. He did the job. He was fantastic. He executed a game plan perfectly, did exactly what he needed to do. He somehow never even really got hit by Jan, who's become so dangerous. And he's going to have a hell of a test coming up when he has to defend that belt against Yuri Prochazka. But even if he loses that fight, he still did it. You know, he reached the mountaintop. He gets to spend the rest of his life with that title on the mantle, knowing he became a UFC champion after everything.
Absolutely. He will never not be a UFC champ. He will always have a piece of the belt, till his dying day. Omar, let me bring you in here to get your reaction and your impressions from Glover's lifetime achievement.
I mean, it's a beautiful moment. I mean, if you've been following, Glover for a little while now, if you've been like in the game for a little bit, you've known Glover to have been around for forever, in the game now for forever. Had his issues when it came to coming into the UFC, when it came to the travel visas and stuff like that. So for him to go through all of that adversity, spending all of that time not fighting the best in the world, but still, keeping himself relevant, losing to Jon Jones the way that he did, because Jon Jones beat the shit out of him. And to come back to where he's at in the time and place that he's at in his life, it's kind of amazing. And I'm ready to watch the Glover Teixeira movie, because they're gonna make one. It's a crazy inspiring story. So yeah, I thought it was fantastic, man. He really did look dominant the entire time. I think we talked about it last week that I thought Glover just had more tools. He had way more experience. It just seemed like the fight was really his to lose as far as I was concerned. And while I did expect Jan to have a bit more fight to him and for there to be a bit more bite in the fight, I was just super impressed with the way that Glover was able to end the show.
Yeah. Glover Teixeira, this is his sixth consecutive win, capping off with achieving the UFC gold His record now stands at 33-7 as a pro with 28 victories by finish. So he's had his fair share of winning streaks. He never has really had any kind of losing streak. He dropped 2 in a row back in 2014. He once had a 22 fight winning streak as a pro. I mean, just an incredible career. He could walk away tomorrow and he is an absolute legend. Let's turn our attention briefly, though, to the loser, Jan Blachowicz. Mark, he's 38 years old. He still has an incredible, very impressive record, 28-9. We know what's next for Glover, but what do you see being next for Jan at light heavyweight?
So I don't want to overreact to one loss. But real quick, I just want to comment on what Omar said about Glover's visa issues and everything. It's a great point because I'm thinking back, and I remember when Glover came to the UFC and tore through everybody and then lost to Bones. It was kind of like, man, he lost all that time because of these visa issues where he could have been here in his prime. And now he had his shot and it didn't happen for him. And what a shame. Who knows what would have happened if he was here sooner like he should have been. And little did we know at the time that what year was that Jones fight? I don't even know. All these years later that he would be the champion. Like no one would have thought it. It really is a movie. But yeah, as for Jan, I'm not going to overreact to one fight. It was a bad performance. He came out super flat. Personally, I still think Jan has the tools to beat Glover. My gut, I wanted to pick Glover. For whatever reason, I had this feeling of like, we're going to see this moment of 42-year-old Glover holding the belt in the octagon. I had this feeling, especially when I watched the Countdown show. I just had this feeling. But the technical breakdown in my head, I couldn't shake that. I was just like, I think Jan is better. And I don't see how Jan doesn't land on him. And Glover has not responded well to getting hit. He's survived, but he hasn't responded well. So even if this fight was to happen again right now, I would be tempted to pick Jan. I really chalk it up to a super flat, shockingly flat performance. And yeah, I don't want to overreact to it. If he comes out again and gets beat or looks like that, it's a different story. And that's why I said I'm so curious to see his next fight, but he's going to get put in there with one of these top 5-ish guys. I actually heard today, I was listening to Anthony Smith's radio show, which I don't even know who he does it with. I never usually listen to it. It was on when I was in the car. And Anthony Smith said that the Rakic fight fell through because he has a staph infection. He being Anthony Smith. And couldn't make it for that fight. But that the UFC came to him right after Jan lost the belt and offered Jan in the spring. So Anthony Smith thinks he will be better by then, and that might be the fight that we're seeing. Okay. So I don't know why they went away from Rakic. Maybe they want to make Rakic Ankalaev after the Ankalaev win, which we'll get to. But if it is Jan and Anthony Smith, I think it's a perfect bounce back fight for Jan, because as much as I love Anthony Smith, the Jan that we have watched for this run up until this loss should beat Anthony Smith. And if he doesn't, I will adjust my take on whether I'm concerned.
Omar, given how flat Jan came out in this fight, would you want to see them run it back right away? Or was there a top 5 light heavyweight you'd rather see Jan go up against next?
No, I mean, as far as the light heavyweight division is concerned, this was pretty much about time for him to lose the belt. I mean, that's just kind of been the other than John Jones, that's really been the kind of the deal of the light heavyweight belt. So yeah, this was about time. And like I said, I personally thought that Glover is better than Jan is when it comes to, specifically when it comes to the technique, but also how to apply the technique to the fight itself. I think his ground game is better, although they're both jiu-jitsu black belts. I thought Glover's ground game was significantly better. And I think Glover's boxing is what allows him to have an advantage over Jan, because Jan is a very loopy kind of guy. The guys that Glover has been tagged up by a lot have been a lot of the slinkier guys that are able to get in between his guards. So a lot of the faster, lighter guys, not the guys that are trying to power through. Guys that try to power through Glover never power through Glover. So I had that feeling that was going to go that way. I don't necessarily see it going a different way if they end up fighting again, but Glover is 42, so anything could really happen. Bad days could be more apparent or more frequent for him. As far as, I would love to see Anthony Smith versus Jan. I mean, I think that's a fantastic fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do like it. My initial thought post-fight, because I thought Smith-Rakic was happening, was that Jan rematching Santos would be cool, considering Santos has a W over him. So it's kind of like he deserves that shot to show if he can do it again. And I still think that would be cool. But the Smith one works. It's hard to hate on the Smith idea.
Yeah. Similar to how when Anderson lost the belt, suddenly middleweight got very interesting and seemed like much more stacked than it was at one point when he was reigning over the middleweight division. And now John Jones is gone, and light heavyweight all of a sudden is kind of stacked. And there's a lot of killers at light heavyweight. So it's just interesting parallels.
I don't know if I feel like it's stacked though. It hasn't happened the same for me where like I feel like middleweight leveled up. I feel like light heavyweight is the same. It just doesn't have John Jones making everyone look bad.
I think it's a combination of both. I think middleweight wasn't at that level until they had somebody to level up to. Izzy is wrecking people left and right in that division, and people had to work their way up and essentially rise to the occasion against him. No one really has, but it's made that division kind of fun to see him kind of run through those people, and it has an era of Anderson Silva to it, especially with the way he does it.
Yeah.
The light heavyweight division, though, with John Jones gone, the reality is a lot of these guys haven't really, like, if we throw John Jones back in the mix, these guys are all going to get their ass beat. That's just great. That's just kind of that's how I feel. I don't think any of these guys.
Absolutely agree.
I don't think any of these guys have anything for John Jones.
I don't. Same. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to think he would beat everybody, but I don't think that everyone would get their ass beat by him.
Yeah, fair.
John Jones knows how to win fights. Yes. He knows how to win MMA fights at this point.
But what wouldn't happen is John Jones getting his ass beat. I don't
mean to say that. I'm not trying to like shrug my shoulders and poo-poo John Jones' skill set. He's the greatest of all time. It's pretty much open and closed case at this point. But I just think at this point in his career, this is not John Jones of 8 years ago. This is John Jones of 2021.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how the fights with Reyes and Santos and Smith went. Right. They were not dominant performances.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Right. Exactly.
But on this note about the light heavyweight division, I have a question I want to pose for you guys. We just saw Glover Teixeira submit Jan in 2 rounds. Pretty much whooped his ass. Corey Anderson is 1-1 with Jan. Corey Anderson beat Glover 30-27 with relative ease. Is Glover Teixeira the current best light heavyweight in the world?
God.
Or is Corey Anderson?
When the hell was that fight?
Corey and Glover?
Yeah.
Maybe like 4 years ago. Something like that. Let's see.
Hold.
2018.
Okay. I mean,
it's not good.
Just from the way you just described it on paper, you might have to say Cory.
There's a way to lay it out where Corey Anderson versus Vadim Nemkov will be to determine the best light heavyweight in the world. You could make the argument.
It's weird.
And again, to me, that just shows, frankly, the shallowness of the light heavyweight division. John Jones is running that division for so long that he was basically the standard. So he was the best, and everybody else we were basically comparing to John Jones. And depending on how you fought against John Jones and how you looked against him, you were either decent or you sucked. You were just sort of like a regular fighter. Like if you survived John Jones, especially back then, you were kind of decent, right? Rashad Evans didn't get knocked out.
Jones bested a lot of guys who were greats.
Yeah. But he used to do, this is why his performances are annoying now, because he used to beat guys at things that they were great at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever they were great at, he would say that's fine and be better at them at it.
Exactly.
That was his thing. And somewhere along the line, we stopped doing that, and it stopped being as fun to watch.
Absolutely.
He got bored. In
the interest of time, guys, because we have so much to get through, let us roll on. And also, out of respect for Glover Teixeira attaining the title at 42 years old, I am not going to ask you guys for your initial takes on Glover versus Prochazka. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's a scary fight. That's a scary fight, man. That's scary.
It's a bad matchup.
Yeah, it is.
Glover Teixeira, his name is plastered all over the marquee this week. Congrats to Glover. Yes. UFC light heavyweight gold. Let us move on, guys. There's so many great fights on this card. The co-main event, Petr Yan, unanimous decision victory over Cory, the Sandman, Sandhagen. Omar, let me start with you. Petr, aka Petr Yan, getting it done. Impressive fashion over Cory Sandhagen. What was your impressions after that fight?
That was a crazy ass fight. I think the first thing that really came to my mind by the end of that fight was that might be the first time that I've seen Cory Sandhagen really take an ass beating. I think from beginning to end, I think the first round was really the only round that he had. And then everything after that, Petr Yan had pretty much taken over.
Yeah.
And at no point did it really seem like Cory had him in any kind of trouble. Didn't really seem to have him in any kind of from a thought process, even with the takedowns and things like that. It didn't really seem to present the same opportunities and the same worries as I think he wanted them to. And I think as a result, Petr Yan was just able to push forward the entire fight, play his game, find his shots, and he landed on Cory a lot.
Yeah.
And Cory's a tough man, dude. Like, Cory didn't go down. I think he got dropped once, I think, with all those barrages of punches, and still came back. Like, he was not out by any stretch of the imagination. Crazy ass fight. Petr Yan, though, I mean, if you weren't sure after the Sterling fight with everything else that was going on and all that other nonsense and whatever, Petr Yan proved himself this past weekend. That boy is gold certified.
Yeah, man, he's so good. He's so good. Mark, let me bring you in here, get your reaction. With this UD victory, earning a 49-46 on all three judges' scorecards, Petr Yan, he gets back in the win column after his DQ loss against Aljo, winning the interim belt, not the two-time belt like Joe Martinez said in the cage. I'm a little confused by that, but
that's a good point, actually.
What were your initial reactions of this incredible win by Petr Yan over a great and tough opponent in Sandhagen?
Yeah, how good was this fight? I mean, it was everything we hoped it would be. Maybe slightly less of a war per se, but a technical war for sure. Yeah. I totally agree with Omar. This is the fight that, in my opinion, made Petr Yan. You know, he was already there, but like I feel like people view him as significantly more elite now coming out of that one. I was wrong in my very specific prediction, but I was close at the same time. I said that Cory would win round 1 and 2, Yan would win 3 and 4, and that I thought Cory could gut out a round 5. And for me, I scored it 4-1 Yan. I gave Cory round 1. I gave all the rest to Yan. When it was live, I was torn on round 2. On the rewatch, I gave it to Yan. But live, I saw a lot of people giving Cory round 2. And then I even saw some people give Cory round 5. On ShareDog, all 3 of them gave Cory round 5.
Wow.
So I was like, if he could have been a little better round 2 and round 5, I would have looked really smart. But unfortunately, he could not. So yeah, for me, it was 4-1 Yan. But I want to talk about both guys. I'm going to do Cory first. There's something about Cory when I watch him. Obviously, he's a great and enjoyable watch. He's so unique. He's got such a cool game. But it always feels to me like a little something is missing. And I could never really put my finger on it. And then I kind of placed it watching that fight. And then on top of it, again, when I was listening to Anthony Smith today, I heard him make a point that I liked. He said that when he watches Cory, he feels like Cory has a lot of point A's, but he's never sure what point B is. As in, there's no plan. There's not like a setup for something or an end goal. And I totally get that, Tate, because my thinking is somewhat similar. Like sometimes I feel like Cory is just out there, like throwing a lot, but kind of just feeling it out. And I mean, which is a great quality. It makes him who he is. But at the same time, so much of what he's throwing is like these little repeated prodding jabs that make zero impact. And a lot are like fadeaways as he's stepping back and sliding away. And to me, the more I watch him, the more I realize that he, in my opinion, needs to find a way to adjust his game a little bit, his boxing game, so that the punches he's throwing have more power behind them. Because he's got his body kicks and his leg kicks. He's got his knees. He doesn't have many power punches. A lot of it is pitter pat, feeling stuff. And I think that holds him back a little bit from breaking through because it allows guys to kind of walk toward him and let off their offense without so much fear of getting caught in the boxing on the way back. And I think a small adjustment like that of throwing more power shots could go a long way to allowing Cory to break through. And I also don't get how he didn't push harder in round 5. Like, okay, maybe he thinks it's 2-2 and not 3-1, But either way, you got to freaking go. Like I needed to see more in round 5. As for Jan, the guy's incredible. He did his usual move of dropping round 1 while he gets his reads and feels you out, but he's just an animal, man. He never, ever stops coming forward, which is so hard to deal with. It accentuates his own cardio because he's just coming at you, draining you. It helps to minimize his size disadvantage that he has at times. And he's so hard to hurt. He's so tough. He's calm in there at all times. You can't rattle him. He's very much like that Russian assassin prototype. And I thought Cory was maybe the trickiest matchup for him in the division, and he handled him 4-1 on my card and on all 3 judges' cards. So I don't know who's going to knock Jan off this perch.
I feel like this is kind of the signature win of Petr Yan's career up to this point over arguably the toughest guy he has faced, and he handled it. I mean, he's just so good. 2 things stick out to me about Petr Yan. He takes a punch so well. He doesn't flinch. He has maybe the best poker face in MMA. And he also has, on top of that, incredible defense. He's such a safe fighter. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Kamaru Usman in that he never really puts himself in a compromised position. He fights so safe, has such incredible technique to watch, and pairing that with great power, he's just good, hard to beat for anybody. Just to give you a sense of just how good Petr Yan is. Okay. His record now stands as a pro at 16-2. Okay. Those 2 losses, the last time he lost was to Magomedov by split decision. So one of those judges thought that Jan won that fight.
Caveat to that, which I never knew until very recently. So I knew he lost the split to Magomedov. He had a point deducted due to a foul. So if it wasn't for that, he wins that fight.
Okay.
So he has 2 losses, and they're both because of fouls.
Right. And the other one obviously being the DQ loss against Aljamain Sterling, which he was clearly sailing to a unanimous decision victory. So he's kind of undefeated. He's never been beaten by any man in a cage as a professional. So, I mean, before the Aljo DQ, he won his I don't know how many fights. I forget how many. I think 10. I think he was on a 10-fight win streak. 10, he's kind of undefeated.
And he avenged the Magomedov loss, and now we may see him avenge the Sterling loss right next.
Yeah, very true. Whew. Where do you guys see Cory going from here?
I think for Cory, you probably go with the Aldo Font loser. I don't really see. Well, it wouldn't shock me if they went with Merab, who is very due for a big fight now at this point. But if I had a bet on it, I think the Aldo Font loser probably gets Cory, and the Aldo Font winner probably gets TJ if TJ's back, because obviously he has to wait now for Jan and Sterling to fight.
Yeah, I mean, Cory, he's now dropped 2 straight. The other one obviously being the split against TJ. And he's only lost to the very elite of the bantamweight division. So, Omar, what's your piece on that?
I would have to agree. I mean, it's pretty tight right now up at the top of bantamweight, especially because he's already fought TJ and lost. TJ's injured. He's not going to be back for probably a few months at this point. I know Aldo and Font obviously have their fight lined up. Sterling's going to fight Petr whenever. So Merab really is the best decision. Cody Garbrandt's not even going to be in the division for however long now, I guess, since he's dropping down to flyweight. I know Edgar has got a fight lined up. Is it this weekend?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, if you want to take something now, Merab would probably be the best bet. That's also probably a good fight, especially if you dominate Merab. That's a good feather in the cap.
That would be a crazy matchup.
Yeah.
Crazy matchup.
Yeah, it would be. Man, oh man. We good to move on?
Yeah.
Any other final takes? Okay. Moving down the main card, man. Islam Makhachev defeats Dan Hooker by, what was it, a Kimura in round number 1. My God, this man is for real. Omar, I'm going to go to you first on this one. What were your impressions following Makhachev's incredible win? Made it look easy over Dan, the Hangman Hooker.
boy.
Whew.
That was a real eye opener, I think, because like I wasn't really sold on it. I think we talked about this last week. I can't really say that now. I mean, it was, I think, by far his most impressive performance.
So he's so good
by far. I can't think of anything he really did wrong. He was completely dominant. Hooker did everything he could to try to stop that submission, but to be honest, by the time he was already in it, it was already too late. It was deep as it was, and the only thing that was really missing was the head, the leg over the head. And as soon as he got that, it was done.
It was over, man. It was
So
nasty.
yeah, it was an impressive performance. I don't know what else you can say, and he's probably at least a fight away from a title shot at this point.
Mark, the 30-year-old Dagestani now improves to 21-1. What were your impressions of the very impressive win of Islam?
This was just so impressive. I tweeted this on Saturday. I don't think even the biggest Islam fan expected that to be that easy. Like, it was over so fast. I was texting people. I was like, man, I wish they would just restart it and give Hooker another chance so we could see what happens. Because like it felt like he wasn't ready. Like, but once he took him down, that step by step, piece by piece progression to the Kimura that Hooker could do nothing about was just so beautiful to watch. It was so perfect. And that was a really, really big statement. Like, Islam has now made his bones, if you will, in regard to how a lot of people viewed his resume, including us.
Mm-hmm.
Hooker, what can you do? He shook off the last quick loss to Chandler and bounced back. Hopefully he can do it again.
Yeah. This was Islam's 9th straight win. That one loss on his record came at the hands of Adriano Martins by knockout. But back in 2015, man, he's 21-1. He is so legit. Let's talk about Hooker real quick. 31-year-old. Times have been a little rough. As of late, he has lost 3 of his last 4. Just now against Islam, he got knocked out by Chandler. And of course, he got decisioned by Dustin. His record now stands at 21-11. Mark, the Hangman, where do you see him going from here, other than back home finally to his daughter?
God, I hope so.
Yeah. I don't know what you do with Dan at this point. You know, you could say like you give him Rafael dos Anjos, since that's who Islam was supposed to fight. And obviously Islam has kind of moved past that now. There's no way that he's going to fight dos Anjos still. So you could give Hooker that, but you could also argue maybe you give Hooker a little bit less than that, coming off another quick loss, and let him kind of try to bounce back first. Like maybe you do like a Carlos Diego Ferreira. I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say even a Grant Dawson, but I kind of still want him to run that back with Rick Glenn. You know, Thiago Moises, like one of these guys who are kind of on the edge of the rankings, trying to get in. A Drew Dober. Actually, has he already fought Drew Dober? No, right?
I
don't think so.
No, he hasn't fought Drew Dober. No. So yeah, any of those guys work. I think maybe Diego Ferreira feels the most right to me if I was booking it.
What about Connor?
Connor's not going to take that fight.
Connor's ranked 9th.
Huh?
In the UFC rankings, Connor's ranked 9th. Dan Hooker's ranked 6th in the UFC rankings.
In the UFC mind, Connor's ranked 1st.
Yes. I know.
They're going to, even if they tried to go to him with Dan Hooker, and then he was like, fuck you, there's no way I'm fighting Dan Hooker, they would be like, you're right, I'm sorry.
100% Connor comes back and fights Islam Makhachev.
Oh my God.
The greatest rivalry since Khabib.
Oh,
I
worst
really hope
matchup
not.
ever for Connor.
Yeah,
Oh
literal worst matchup ever, 100%. But he'll take it because he's insane.
Hope not.
Anyway, Omar, looking at the lightweight rankings, what do you think is next for our boy Dan Hooker?
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him against Gillespie. I'm not sure what he has on the register right now, but Gillespie would be a fun fight. I know Tony Ferguson's looking for something. He's been calling out Nate Diaz. I'm not sure how real that is, but that could also be a fun fight. That'll be violence regardless of how that fight goes.
That's true.
I'll tell you what, I didn't think about that fight. That's a cool fight. That works.
Yeah, I mean that's also a good fight to figure out exactly where they both are in the division, because
Yeah.
I think we've all had questions about Tony now with his last two performances. You know, granted, even from Hooker too. When we look at Hooker and Ferguson's both of their losses recently, they've lost to the top, to the cream of the crop.
Oh yeah.
So we need to really figure out whether they've lost it or whether this is just the fact that lightweight is just stacked to shit and they're just, the top five is just too crazy right now. But I think that would be a really good fight.
Okay. Any last words you guys want to say on the impressive performance of Makhachev?
Yeah, I would like to talk about what Islam does next.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
So obviously Islam wants a title shot. I don't think it's going to happen without one more fight unless the circumstances dictate it. And this is what I mean, if I may, for a minute. So we have Gaethje Chandler this weekend, and then you have Oliveira Poirier next month. I don't think the UFC makes any decision on Islam until these play out. And here's why. It's going to be really hard to deny the winner of Gaethje Chandler, especially if it's a finish, which wouldn't shock anyone in that fight.
Probably
so say it's Gaethje who wins, and then it's Oliveira who keeps his title. I think that absolutely gets booked. Say it's Chandler who wins, and then Poirier wins the title. I think that absolutely gets booked. Both of those are fresh matchups, and I think they'd be really hard to resist. But then, say it's Gaethje who wins and Poirier wins the title. They fought already. It was 3 years ago, so maybe that still happens. Maybe they could be able to promote the rematch angle, and maybe Islam still doesn't get it. But lastly, say it's Chandler and Oliveira keeps his title. I don't see any way the UFC runs that back when it just happened.
That
So-
closely? I doubt it too, yeah.
If that is how that plays out, then I think that is the one avenue for Islam Makhachev getting an immediate title shot.
That's the one, not the second one. I thought the second one was where you're going.
What was the second one?
If Dustin wins, I forget.
And Gaethje?
Yes. Yeah, right. I don't know.
If
Well,
Dustin and Gaethje,
I said maybe on that because they have already fought, but it was 3 years ago, so I could see the UFC promoting the violence between them and saying and building the rematch. The one that I think there's no way is if it's Chandler and Oliveira, because it literally just happened.
Okay.
So I cannot see them doing that again so soon. So if that's the case, I don't think Chandler would get it, and I think Islam would get the shot against Oliveira. Now, I've also heard it suggested that Islam should just fight the winner of Gaethje and Chandler. I don't really see that either, because that means the winner of the title fight would have to wait for a while. So I don't think that works. I think probably the most likely scenario is that Beneil Dariush might finally have himself an opponent.
Okay.
Which probably is not what Islam is looking for, but that would be an amazing fight anyway. And I think that is what we might have to do. And if you do that, you know, say whoever wins that Chandler Gaethje fight gets booked against the winner of the title fight. Then you get to say, okay, we're doing that new booking and we're doing Islam Dariush, and whoever wins Islam Dariush is fighting for the title. So I could see them being like, all right, we'll take one more, you know?
You know, I'll say you just made me think this just dawned on me based on your analysis just now. Other than Charles Oliveira, I think the only other guy on the lightweight roster who could give Islam Makhachev a challenge might be Beneil Dariush. That's a great fight. Oh my God.
The thing to keep in mind.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the thing to keep in mind is I remember Dariush talking about how he was gonna wait for a title shot. I hope this dude realized at this point they're not looking at him for this title shot right away. I don't think that they are. So I hope he knows he needs to probably take, especially with the way things have been going in that division, another shot at somebody. And I think Makhachev is the perfect person to really solidify the fact that he deserves to be up there.
Great. And it's not so hard to sell if you're saying you have to take this one more fight, and if you win, you're fighting for the belt. You know, for them to for Islam or Dariush to be that close and be like, no, I don't want to do that. I'd rather wait. They got to know that's not going to really look so good in the UFC brass eyes. So I think that's probably the way it goes. MMA is like a glamour sport at times. And those guys got to realize that lightweight is a division that has Poirier, Gaethje, and Chandler, who are all glamour names. And it's hard to jump them, especially if it's going to be a knockout in that Gaethje Chandler fight, one way or the other. So you got to work for it.
Absolutely.
The other thing too that's interesting is that Dariush fought Ferguson in May of this past year. Doesn't really seem like it was that long ago, but in MMA time, shit was like forever ago.
He's been out for a long time. Wait,
Right.
not May of this year? Wow, I thought it was longer than that.
No.
I feel like he's been out forever.
2021.
Wow. I really feel like he's been out so much longer.
That's what I mean. It feels like it's been forever.
Even though as of late, the bantamweight division has been my like favorite division to follow and to watch fights in. The lightweight division is and has been for years, arguably the most stacked division in the sport.
Oh, I agree with that.
Or in the UFC. The lightweight division in the UFC is basically its own promotion, man. It could be its own league. You know
And
what I mean?
the UFC has all the top lightweights. Like
Yeah.
almost every other division, you can throw 1 or 2 or 3 names out there that are somewhere else. Like the top, I don't even know what, 20 lightweights in the world are in the UFC.
Yeah, man. Well, with that being said, let us move on. Let's keep marching down this main card. We're going to talk about one more fight from the main card at length. And guys, Khamzat Chimaev defeated by submission Li JIngliang. Oh my God, that was easy. Talk about easy. Another one, man. Oh man, we all thought that Li was going to give Khamzat some trouble and maybe squash some of the hype. Boy, was I wrong. Mark, let me start with you on this one. What were your impressions of Chimaev?
Holy hell, man. Holy hell. The dude picked JIngliang up, walked him across the cage so he could talk to Dana White while he held him in the air and then slammed him to the canvas. What do you even do with that?
That's one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen.
I thought Chimaev would win.
It was. It really was.
The way he won, like the hype is real, man. Am I anointing him as the champion? No, I'm not. I see a lot of people already are. I said ahead of time that the UFC selected the right ranked fighter for Chimaev to look good. Now, I didn't think it was going to look quite that good. We are now 4 fights in, and the total strikes in this man's career are 254 to 2. 254 to 2. You can't ignore that. That's insanity. The guy is a friggin' terror. And on top of that, of all the great Russian fighters that we've seen, Chimaev seems like he may have the biggest personality thus far. Like he's a natural showman.
Yeah, you're right.
He's
That's a great
comfortable
point.
on the mic. He comes across likable, and he just screams superstar. Like he is white hot right now.
Yes. People love doing impressions of him. No, smash, brother. Smash. He calls everybody brother. Omar. My God, Khamzat Chimaev. Remember the name a few episodes ago, maybe like episode, I don't know what, 4 or something like that of this podcast. I called him Hazmat by accident. My God.
Does it every time still.
Remember the name Khamzat Chimaev from Chechnya, undefeated, now 10-0, all 10 wins by finish, 6 knockouts, 4 submissions, 4-0 in the UFC. Whew. Omar, what were your impressions of Chimaev's ragdolling of Li JIngliang?
The Chechen Wolf might be the most appropriate nickname for that guy because it was like watching somebody eat dinner. It was a bad night for JIngliang. Admittedly, I was watching after we recorded last week. There was the press conference and the weigh-ins and stuff, and JIngliang got me all hyped up. Got me all sold on the fact that he might be able to do something on Saturday.
That weigh-in was hyped.
Those were wolf tickets, my friend. Huh? Wolf tickets?
Very nice. You get the one hand clap.
Anyway, it was a crazy performance. It was an embarrassing moment just to get baby picked up, walked over, slammed on the ground, and then Chimaev just having an entire conversation with Dana White while he's like ragdolling JIngliang on the floor. It was tough to see somebody of JIngliang's ability just get completely run over. With that said, I promise you, one of these days, when it matters most, Chimaev will miss weight.
Well,
I promise you.
I mean, he's a big boy, man.
Chimaev is gigantic.
Yeah,
I don't know
welterweight.
I don't know what that dude. Yes, what that dude walks around at, but it is far from 170. Like,
yeah.
That's however he cuts weight is crazy. We had a towel gate incident number 2. Now,
yeah, that was hilarious. That was a bad one.
They caught him though. They were like, no, hands up.
Yeah,
hands up.
Yeah.
The lady was like, he lost 5 pounds. He lost 5 pounds just now in the past 60 seconds.
But it's it's all fun and games now, and we're all having a great time with it, and that's fine. But watch when he needs to make 170 and there's a title fight or a contender eliminator fight or something like that, he's gonna fuck around and he's gonna come in at like 175 or something. Mark my words.
I hope not, but he is a big boy. You notice it right away.
Yeah, the size difference was ridiculously apparent between the two.
Yeah,
Chimaev is only 27 years old. I see him naturally filling out probably a little more of the next few years. I can't see him. I really can't see him competing at welterweight for that much longer. Maybe, I don't know.
He's probably got the Connor plan in mind. Try to make a big run through the division and then move up and
stay
try
at
to win at
middleweight.
the higher weight class.
Oh, okay. Matchups. Mark, you said earlier that Li JIngliang was probably the best ranked welterweight to go up against Chimaev right now. Where does he go from here? Who do you see as
The
next
best to make him look good.
Right.
I'm saying. So I think this question has a lot of potential answers because you could go a few ways. Answer 1 is that you don't make a huge jump and he fights one of like that Neil Magny, Bilal Muhammad, Michael Chiesa grouping, which probably makes the most sense in terms of like moving a guy up. Obviously, Chiesa's booked with Sean Brady. He would have to get past Brady. Answer 2 is this Nate Diaz fight that everyone is buzzing about, that he is asking for, that Dana is apparently interested in, but
terrible fight for
yikes for Nate. I can't really see Nate taking it. Answer 3 is that there are 3 guys in limbo right now toward the top of this division with no one to fight them. They are Gilbert Burns, Vicente Luque, and Stephen Thompson. Jesus. Reason being because Usman and Colby are booked, and Edwards and Masvidal are booked. And none of these 3 guys can fight each other because Stephen Thompson just fought them both. So I don't think the UFC is booking that again right away. And Gilbert Burns and Vicente Luque are not fighting each other because they're boys. So there is a scenario where if one of them picked up the phone and said, you know what, Dana, give me this guy Chimaev, I could see Chimaev just getting leapfrogged right into a fight that big. I mean, they already tried to book him against Leon Edwards however many months back, if you remember that, and that fell through. So I would not be shocked if one of them asks for it, if they just say, yep, we're putting Chimaev right in a fight that big.
I can see it too. I'm afraid they're going to match him up against Thompson because out of the 3 you just named, I think the worst matchup would be for Thompson. I mean, that's a terrible matchup for Wonder Boy.
Agreed.
I think, Burns and Luque are both strong welterweights who might give Chimaev a handful.
Chimaev Burns would be fucking cool to see Burns on the ground with him and see what Burns might be able to throw at him. That'd be cool.
I would rather, because if this guy's going to be a real commodity at 170, I would rather get his resume properly prepared.
I agree. If I got to pick, I would pick Chiesa.
I would go Neil Magny.
Tough fight for Chiesa. Chiesa.
I would go Neil Magny. I think Neil Magny has proven himself at best to be one of those. I hate using the word gatekeeper for somebody like Neil Magny, but he's almost like the best gatekeeper there's ever been.
Yeah, he's a gatekeeper of the top 10. You gotta specify
he's a genuine gatekeeper. Like, he keeps the shit out of the division. He's very, very good at doing it. And so I really think that if he's able to get around Neil Magny and get around him with the same kind of dominance he's apparently been showing in his last couple fights, throw him wherever the hell you want. Then put him all the way at the top if you really need to, because Neil Magny's not an easy guy to finish or beat in general.
No, certainly not.
Yeah. Want to say anything about where Lee goes?
I can't. I don't really want to take too much away from Lee. It was a bad performance, but like,
Yeah, he got ragdolled.
But
He was
this
tough
is
as
a
shit,
guy
to give him
everybody's so
credit.
high on. I don't
He
know.
was tough.
He was doing everything he could to not go away. He was fighting those chokes. He could have tapped any of those chokes, and then he passed out to the last choke. He was going for it in there. I don't move him down so far. Maybe that fight we just mentioned, the Chiesa Sean Brady fight, give him the loser of that fight. Something like that.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. Well, guys, let us move on. I am so excited to see where Chimaev goes from here. Before we hop into our lightning round, I just want to recap real quick a very controversial fight from this pay-per-view card. On the undercard, Elisa Zaleski dos Santos, unanimous decision over Benoit. How do you say his last name? Saint-Denis. Those French names, man, they trip me up. Man, I hate people with French last names. Vyacheslav Kiselev. That was a tough one. That is the name of the gentleman who refereed this fight. Vyacheslav Kiselev. Man, oh man. In the second round, he let Zaleski beat the ever-living daylights out of Benoit. And Omar, let me get your first reaction to this. What was your reaction to this refereeing performance?
So we've seen a lot of really bad refereeing over the years. This one definitely goes right up there. There was no real regard for the safety of the fighter. The second round, he obviously got caught with a punch. What was the gentleman's name? Benoit got caught with a punch, got rocked, and it really didn't get any better from there. It's one of those moments where the guy, Dos Santos got tired from beating the shit out of this guy. Got to give credit to Benoit though, or Benoit. He was still throwing back when he had the opportunities to, when it got back up. But you were talking about maybe 2.5 minutes of him just getting his ass beat. And then in the third round, he gets poked in the eye almost right away at the beginning of the round. And then Benoit takes a moment, tells the referee, I can't see, points to his eye that's closed, says, I can't see. Referee goes, okay, you ready? You ready? And just restarts the fight.
Had a lot of heart though, man. He had a lot of heart.
Yeah, I'd take nothing away from Benoit. Yeah.
But again, I've talked about it on here before. I have aspirations of being a referee, and I think about those moments where what first of all, the referee should have done something, right? If the guy tells you can't see, at least bring a doctor. Have that moment, right, where the doctor comes in, they check the eye, make sure the eye's not falling out, or the retina is not ripped to half, or let's not have a Bisbing moment in the middle of this fight.
I mean, I had never seen this guy before. Maybe he's ref UFC cards before. I haven't seen him.
I've never seen him before either.
Maybe he just kind of froze in the moment to the stage that he was on, and he just kind of was just like, "Go fight."
Well, I'll let Omar finish, and then I'll react to that.
Yeah, I wish there was more proper things that were done. I also wish, especially because all the other referees that were outside of the cage also knew what was going on inside of the cage was not right and couldn't do anything about it. I want to say that they wanted to do something about it, because how could you not?
So bad. But
they couldn't. And there's got to be something there too, because if there are going to be multiple referees on site in the moment, then there's got to be some sort of redundancy backup plan or something when a referee like this gets involved and they're just clearly fucking it up.
That's a great point. Maybe between rounds, the other 2 or 3 refs that are at the event can almost like when in football or basketball, when the refs all huddle together and get the call right. Yeah. Really any major sport. Mark, let me get your reaction real quick. What was your reaction to this unbelievable refereeing debacle?
Yeah, it was freaking ridiculous. I thought I was in the Twilight Zone by the time we got through all the different things he did in that fight. But I'm not even a guy who's a stop the fight guy. I'm the guy usually who's you got to understand these guys are fighters. This is their life. You got to let them try to go out on their shield. You can't take it away from them, blah, 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 blah. There were 2 different times in that second round where I was screaming, stop the fight. Yeah. And then my response to your maybe he froze thing is that the first moment was at 2:30ish where it was blatantly obvious. Dos Santos was pouring it on, and I'm like, oh my God, stop the fight, stop the fight. He's just eating shots. His hands are down.
Yeah, his
And
hands.
he doesn't stop the fight. And then they kind of move where the visual changes, and now it's like, oh, they're clinching on each other or whatever it was. So like, I can't stop it right now. So, okay, you say he froze. 30 seconds later, at like 155, it happens again. So he didn't freeze twice. Like, he had another opportunity. The same thing replayed 30 seconds later. And again, he let it go through. And yes, to Benoit's credit, he stayed in it. The guy was tough as shit. But even if he knocked Dos Santos out, I would be saying the same thing right now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, okay, he didn't die, but the fight still should have been stopped 2 different times.
It seemed like
Then, like
every
Omar
time
said-
the ref said to him, like, defend yourself or whatever he was saying, Benoit would like raise his hands and just like paw at Zaleski one time. And like,
Yes.
maybe that was enough for the ref to kind of keep extending it. But man, it was really
Not
rough.
after
But
like
that's
10
but
unanswered
that's terrible refereeing though.
Terrible.
You don't judge an entire fight, especially on
Just
the
moment
guy's
to
ability to. Yeah, he all of the energy that guy had in the moment was used to throw whatever 1 or 2 punches he was able to throw out there. He was never going to be able to really knock that guy out at that point. He had nothing left. His body wasn't even able to let him stand up straight, let alone throw punches. He was destroyed. He was completely destroyed.
And then
Very
the eye
tough to
poke
watch.
happens, like Omar said. He doesn't call in a doctor. He's like, all right, cool. Nice eye. Let's keep going. And then toward the end of the 3rd round, there's like a very minor groin strike in the clinch situation when they both move, clearly unintentional, super non-egregious. And he just immediately takes a point from Dos Santos. I was like, is this guy trolling us at this point? Like, what is happening?
Maybe he was
in
trying
this
to
fight?
exact some kind of like cosmic justice
Oh,
of
God.
like, oh man.
So
was bad.
thank God they removed him from the whatever fights he was supposed to ref the rest of the night. I was petrified that he was going to fuck up one of the later fights after that performance. But
Yeah,
that was
DC
rough.
DC was going crazy.
Yeah, he was.
Everybody should have been going crazy. I mean, it was a terrible performance. The other thing I wanted to mention is when a referee is fucking up that bad, the corners really need to be a lot more responsible. Like, I understand you want your fighters to win. You want, you don't want to quit. You don't want to have that, I gave up kind of shit. I understand that to an extent. I really do. But at some point when your fighter is taking that much damage, you have to know what's best for your fighter.
Right.
And then
There's
you have to
competing
realize
interests,
there's going to
obviously.
be another day. Today is not the day to put all your chips into the center of the table.
I mean, it makes me think of that. I forget who it was, that female fighter who not too long ago, in between rounds, she said, like, I'm done. That's it. And her corner was like, no, you're not.
Yeah. who
Oh
was that?
yeah,
I
I
do
don't
kind of
remember who
remember
that
that.
was now.
I can't think of who that was.
But yeah, there's competing
know what you're
interests.
talking about, though.
The corner, yes, cornermen are supposed to have the fighter's safety in mind, but they're also supposed to be lighting a fire under their fighter's ass. It has happened. I mean, UFC commentator Michael Bisping in one of his final fights against Anderson Silva basically was knocked out at the end of what round? 2nd round or 3rd round? Goes out and wins the next round and wins the fight.
To be
So-
fair, that fight should have been called. Like, I don't
Well, there
really
you go.
care. I don't care how that fight ended up in the end, and that the fact that Michael Bisping has a decent recovery because of his cardio. That fight should have been called. The fact that Herb D just watched Bisping just snoring on the ground, like, are you gonna come kill him, Anderson? No.
Hey,
This guy disagrees with that take.
Mark, for those listening on the audio podcast, Mark just held up the autobiography of Michael the Count Bisping.
I love Bisping, but it's one of those moments where I see people like that taking that kind of damage, and I'm like, that should have been called. That's, you know what I mean? There's no reason to keep going.
Yeah,
But
man, it was so. Anyway, I really hope that Saint-Denis really is okay and heals up from that beating he took. That was really, really tough to watch.
there's gonna be a lot of blood in every orifice for that guy for a while.
I do just want to make one quick note on the fighters themselves. So that was Saint-Denis' debut. And I do think he showed crazy heart, but he also showed a lot of skills. So I am interested to see what he can do next. I think he's someone to keep an eye on.
Mhm.
And then Zaleski dos Santos is a beast. Like, the dude is really good. And he's one of these guys who, for some reason, seems like he doesn't really get like the opportunities that he should be getting. And I would love to see him get a fight with a name. Like he's had a couple before. He beat Sean Strickland. Recently, he lost to Li JiNgliang. You know, he's had some names. There's probably one or two more I'm forgetting. But like he is very good. Like it seems like he gets put with randoms a lot. Like right here, he got put with a debuting fighter. I would love to see him get put with a top 20 guy.
He beat Max Griffin.
Yeah, man, he's beat a lot of guys. He beat
Sean Strickland.
in his recent loss to Muslim Salikov. I thought he won that fight. Like he is very good.
Wow. Yeah. All right, gentlemen, let us go into my favorite part of the show lately, our lightning round. But first, ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, share this video, hit that thumbs up. That nothing's going to help us more than you subscribing and liking this video. If you're into audio only and listening to us on your podcast app, thank you so much. And please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And once again, follow us on social media at @&new_MMA show. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to throw a few more of these fights from UFC 267 into our lightning round. Let us begin our lightning round. Alexander Volkov, UD over Marcin Tybura. Omar, go first.
Boy, I got this one wrong. Marcin Tybura had nothing for Volkov. Volkov was very technical, played it completely perfect, shut my ass up.
Mark, Volkov, UD over Tybura.
Volkov fought pretty much the exact fight I imagined he would. His defensive wrestling continues to improve, and he did exactly what he had to do to get the W there.
Magomed Ankalaev, UD over Volkan Ozdemir. Mark, go first.
Such an impressive performance for Magomed. Really made a statement doing that almost entirely on the feet. He is the real deal at light heavyweight, excuse me. And he is absolutely a name to watch. He'll be in a big fight next.
Omar, Ankalaev, UD over Ozdemir. Go.
This fight kind of went exactly the way I thought it was. The one takeaway I had, other than the obvious from Magomed, was that Ozdemir's chin held up. Good for him.
Yeah.
Amanda Ribas, unanimous decision victory over Virna Jandiroba. Omar, go first.
Solid fight. Jandiroba is not an easy person to win against, even in a decision. Ribas looked fantastic. Can't wait to see her again.
Mark, Ribas, UD over, as John Anik would say, John Jadoba.
Yeah, another one that played out pretty much just how I thought it would. Ribas was just too good everywhere for Jandiroba for her to have a way to win that fight.
Zubaira Tuhugov. Got that one, baby. UD over Ricardo Ramos. Omar, go first.
Yeah, I might have to watch that one again. That was a crazy ass fight back and forth. A lot of punches thrown, a lot of punches landed on both sides. I don't know why I had Ramos winning some of those rounds. Maybe I need to go back and watch it, but crazy ass fight all the way around.
Mark, Tuhugov takes it over Ramos. What you got?
Yeah, the third I thought maybe Ramos could have won, but the first two I thought were pretty clearly for Tuhugov. I mean, it was back and forth. Don't get me wrong, but good fight and great win for Tuhugov. He is so clean and packs good power on every strike that he throws out. He's always struck me as a guy who I thought could put a run together, and maybe this is going to be the start of one.
Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, first round knockout, nasty short uppercut over Shamil Gamzatov. Omar, take it.
That pressure is something else from Oleksiejczuk. Pressure is nasty. That pressure was really the name of the game. Kept that dude on the back foot the entire time. Body shots were making him wear. I mean, he was gassed within that first round. Gamzatov was completely gassed within that first round, just from the pressure and having to keep this guy off him the whole time. And just to watch him melt was impressive.
Mark, Oleksiejczuk knocks out Shamil in the first round. What's your take?
Yeah, Omar said it. I mean, talk about walking someone down. My God, that was one of the most perfectly executed walk them down game plans I've ever seen. I think Omar used the word melting, which was perfect. Like, or you did maybe. Gamzatov, you could see him melting in front of him. Like he was just panicking. He was rushing into throwing back because he was getting walked down so much. He was gassing, and eventually he got put to sleep.
Lerone the Miracle Murphy out of England. second round knockout over Makwan Amirkhani. Mark, take it first.
Makwan gonna Makwan. He is going to win round one, and then it's going to go south. This time it went south immediately after round one ended.
Yes.
Huge win for Lerone Murphy, who is still undefeated.
Omar, the Miracle Murphy, beautifully timed knee, knocks out Amirkhani. What's your take?
Timing beats speed every time.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful, beautiful knee. It doesn't get much better than that. That'll be on the highlight reel probably for the rest of his career.
Yeah, man. And that concludes this week's lightning round. Thank you, gentlemen. Yeah, Amirkhani, I think he faked shooting like 2 or 3 times in a row.
Yes.
And Murphy just that one time that Makwan actually shot in, he timed that knee beautifully and knocked him out cold. That was very impressive. All right, boys. That does it for our lightning round. Now let us put a bow on UFC 267. And Mark, will you give us an update on who rose and who fall with the update of our Priaulx rankings?
Yes, sir. So I don't have any significant fallers this week, but I do have 4 noteworthy risers. In no particular order. The first one, I'll go down the card with it. The first one was Islam Makhachev, moving from number 9 to number 5 in my lightweight ranking. So not a huge move number-wise, but definitely significance-wise, he has entered the true elite at lightweight. The next is Khamzat Chimaev, moving from number 32. He was still somewhat unproven, as we know, to number 12 now in my welterweight rankings. I actually have not looked. Have you guys seen if the UFC inserted him in the rankings? And if so, where so?
They haven't. They still have Jan here as the goddamn
Haven't
champion.
updated it? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it usually comes out Tuesday nights, so we'll see. So yeah, number 12 in my welterweight rankings now, certainly in the mix. And then the last 2 are kind of guys who move together. One of which is Lerone Murphy, who we just talked about, moves from number 35 to number 22 in my featherweight rankings off of that knockout of Makwan Amirkhani. And then the other is Zubair Tukhugov, who was number 34, 1 ahead of Murphy, and is now number 21 in my featherweight rankings, again, 1 ahead of Murphy. He moves less so off because of his win over Ramos, though it was a great win. Ramos was ranked a bit lower, but more so because of Murphy's win and the fact that he has a draw with Murphy. So they kind of move together up the ladder off the strength of Murphy beating Amirkhani.
All right. Thank you, sir, for the update. Yes, Omar, go.
Do you have a question for Le Priaulx rankings? Li JIngliang, where did you have him in your rankings?
Where did I have him?
Because they had him at 11 on the UFC rankings.
So I'd have to look back where I had him pre-fight. Although I'm pretty positive I had him at 12, and now I have him at 13. I did not move him
down.
far at all because he has the knockout in his previous fight over Ponzinibbio. So you can't really move him down much because Pons is right there.
Yeah.
So there's not really anywhere for him to go at this point.
Yeah, my guess is they'll probably put Chimaev at 11. Lee will move down to 12, and then Ponzinibbio down to 13 on their rankings.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right.
That is it.
Let's keep this thing rolling and let us now go inside the MMA sphere. Omar, what stories and current events from the MMA world do you have for us this week?
All right. So luckily we don't have too much crazy time or too many crazy stories to go over because we want to have some time for the card coming up. So getting into it really quickly, the cousin of Sergio and Anthony Pettis, Angelo Pettis, is making his MMA amateur debut in the coming weeks. He is still in high school. So starting off very young, very quickly. He's been training since he was young. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of him in the next couple of years. Should be interesting.
Okay.
Jimmy Rivera, no longer with the UFC like we knew, but is now with BKFC. Add him to the roster. BKFC is building that roster and building those names. So they're doing big things over there. That was a little bit more surprising to me, to be honest. I think
Not
he's
my
more
favorite
effective
fit.
in MMA, but
Yeah. Very well-rounded guy. I don't know. It seems like an odd guy to go into BKFC.
yeah. But I hope the best for him. He probably, I would assume he probably sees guys in BKFC and maybe sees some opportunity there with what he presents. So hopefully that works out for him. And that's pretty much it for as far as stories are concerned. Pretty slow week in MMA. Again, sometimes that's kind of a good thing. So should be thankful for that. All right, so let's get to some fight announcements, and then we will jump into the fight card for this upcoming weekend. So first come up, Mark DeCasey versus Rafael Alves. November 13th, UFC Fight Night. That is going to be a fantastic fight. Those guys are both bangers. That'll be violence for sure. Kyle Dawkins has been having some issues keeping a fight. Kevin Holland is out of the fight with Kyle Dawkins. Eric Anders then stepped in. Eric Anders is now out of the fight with Kyle Dawkins. Now is replaced by Roman Dolidze, who is now in for this fight on November 13th. So the fight now is Roman Dolidze versus Kyle Dawkins, UFC Fight Night, November 13th. Hopefully that stays that way. We'll see what happens. Gavin Tucker is out against his fight against Pat Sabatini. He's been replaced by Tucker Lutz. That fight is happening November 20th, UFC Fight Night. Pat Sabatini is definitely one to watch. He's a very good fighter, very fun fight to watch.
Yeah,
Chase Sherman. What's up?
I was looking forward to that matchup with Gavin Tucker. I didn't know that Tucker was out. That sucks.
Yeah, so was I. I don't know what Tucker. I'm not familiar with Tucker Lutz off the top of my head. But the Gavin Tucker Pat Sabatini fight was a fantastic one. Yeah. Chase Sherman versus Jay Collier. Another good fight. UFC Fight Night, January 15th. That's going to be a fun heavyweight banger. Roxanne Modafferi has her next fight lined up versus Casey O'Neill. That will be at UFC 271, February 12th, and that'll be a women's flyweight bout.
Yeah, that'll be Casey's chance to break through in the rankings for sure. She might be borderline ranked right now. I forget, but that'll be her name to get.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm kind of concerned for Roxanne on that one. That stylistically, that seems like a bad matchup.
Yeah,
she's a fan favorite. Always has been a fan favorite.
Yeah. But that's all I got for today. Let's get into those fights, boys.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Thank you, sir, for the update on what is happening inside the MMA sphere. Oh, man. I feel like, should we take like a 15-minute break, like an intermission right now?
I was just going to say, it feels so crazy to finish recapping such a big card and know that we're about to preview another. Like, I feel like we're doing something wrong. Like, is this not this week? Like, are we fucking this up? Like, it's weird.
Sometimes you get a pay-per-view that's not the strongest card. And sometimes you get one that's a great card. It's very, very rare that you get back-to-back pay-per-views that are only 7 days apart that are both so stacked. We just got treated to such a deep pay-per-view card with UFC 267. And only a week later, 268 is just as, if not more stacked than last weekend. So my God, let us get into these fights, boys. Let us start with Edmen Shahbazyan versus Nassourdine Imavov in the middleweight division on the prelims. Okay, so there's four. This is a 14 fight card. There are definitely some fun fights on the early prelims that will be on ESPN Plus and UFC Fight Pass. We're going to start with Shahbazyan Imavov on the preliminary card. It's going to be on ESPN Plus. So, Mark, let me start with you. Shahbazyan, he's been a hot prospect for a while now at middleweight. What do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Shahbazyan had a lot of buzz behind him. Lost to two top guys in Brunson and Hermanson, and they did not give him an easy task to get back on track here. I would have thought they would give him a little bit less tricky of a matchup to get his hype train rolling again. But Nassourdine Imavov looks really good so far. He battled Phil Hawes on short notice and even won round 3 of that fight. And he looked fantastic against Ian Heinisch, just really dominant and dangerous with his hands and pieced him apart. He's probably going to be the better wrestler and grappler in there. I'm really tempted to pick Imavov, especially because I've always had a hard time getting a feel for Edmen Shahbazyan. I always have random guys like this who, for some reason, I can't form an opinion on. I was saying the same thing about Jan last week. Granted, now I feel like I have a better take on Jan. But I don't know. I've struggled to evaluate Shahbazyan. He did KO Brad Tavares, who I value highly. So that says a lot in itself. But I don't know. I could see myself flip-flop on this one all week. If I have to pick right now, I think I'm going to say Imavov gets it done by decision.
Okay. Omar, you got to pick for this prelim fight.
Yeah. Looking at these, I kind of have to agree with Mark when it comes to Shahbazyan. You know, he came in with a lot of hype, a lot of momentum, and it just, you know, it's just been kind of ruined with those last 2 fights. Not really sure what to take away from it as far as what to expect from Imavov, but Imavov has just looked so good in his last few fights. He definitely lost the fight to Phil Hawes, but even in that fight, I mean, it wasn't a super unimpressive loss, or an impressive loss, I guess I should say.
Mhm.
So yeah, with all that being said, that was really a long way to get to. I think Imavov will win by decision.
Okay.
Wow.
I like Shahbazyan in this one. I'm going to go Shahbazyan by knockout in round number 2.
I forgot.
That's my pick.
I forgot to get my odds up before doing this. Usually I like to give you guys the odds. So I'm pulling them up as we speak because now I'm very curious. Wow, it's really tight. Wow, Imavov is the favorite. Here I am thinking I'm picking an underdog. He's about -120, and Shahbazyan is like even money.
Imavov has never been knocked out in his career as a pro. So my pick is I'm playing the law of averages there, boys. Okay, let us unless you guys have anything else to say about Shahbazyan and Imavov rather.
No, sir.
Let us keep going. In the lightweight division, Iaquinta against Bobby King Green, both guys looking to get back into the win column. Iaquinta has lost 3 of his last 4 fights, most recently against Dan the Hangman Hooker. And Bobby Green has dropped his last 2, most recently against Rafael Fiziev. Is that his name?
Fiziev, yeah.
Omar, I'm going to go to you first. Both guys not having a great time as of late, but both are definitely fan favorites and guys who are known in the division. What do you make of this matchup, Iaquinta versus Green?
I think it's a beautiful matchup. I think both of them finally don't really have to worry about somebody trying to outpoint the other. I think both of them are basically going to go in and just throw down, and it's going to be exactly the type of scrap we expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are a fighter's fighter. I mean, they are. I think we've seen Al prove time and time again that he's more than willing to take a punch to give 2. And Bobby Green is to a certain extent kind of the same way. Puts himself in the line of fire. Will take a couple punches here and there, but is very good at rolling with the punches, so he doesn't take nearly as much damage as Al has in the past. But it'll be a fantastic fight. There will definitely be fireworks. Just based on the way that they fight, I think Al Iaquinta will come out on top. I'm not convinced that it'll be a knockout per se, but I do think Al will end up winning a decision.
Mark, Iaquinta versus Bobby Green. What are you thinking? Who you got?
I love this fight. This is like one of those matchups for the people. It's impossible to evaluate because you have Al Iaquinta, who hasn't fought since October 2019 and who hasn't won since December 2018, fighting Bobby Green, who's one of the most active fighters there is. So I don't know how you evaluate how that's going to play out when they get together in a cage. Personally, I'm always a believer in the skills of Raging Al. I think he's high level and he can give problems to a lot of guys. And I'm also always a believer in the skills of Bobby Green. Like, yes, he has a little bit of this journeyman vibe to him simply because his record is kind of hovering around 500. But let's not forget, Bobby Green, almost all of his losses are close-ass decision losses. Like Drakkar Close, I scored that fight for Bobby Green. The Trinaldo fight was crazy close. Thiago Moises, I scored for Bobby Green. He just had that war with Fiziev that, yes, he did lose, but he was in it with Fiziev the entire time. Like, no one really puts Bobby Green out besides Dustin Poirier. Like, he is in every fight. He's absolutely high level. And he's a tough matchup for anyone. So I think this is actually a perfect matchup for a returning Iaquinta because I think these two could put on a banger. I think it can go one of 2 ways. Way one is that Al comes in just a little bit rusty and that Green is just too active of an opponent to do that against, and that Al gets his face punched off for the better part of 15 minutes. Way 2 is that Al usually, I believe, is the more composed, well-rounded, more multifaceted, skilled fighter. and that he could wrestle or clinch or change different game plans to make sure he ends up winning that fight and keeping it on whatever terms he needs to win it. But I will say, when this fight first got announced, I thought I was going to take Iaquinta, and until I sat down today and tried to think about this for who I wanted to take on the podcast, I thought that's what I was going to do, and it's not what I'm going to do. It's hard to pick a Bobby Green fight because he, like I said, he just always ends up in these tight decisions that could go either way. But I'm going to say Bobby Green by decision. I'll say split decision for the fuck of it because it feels about right.
Why not? Why not? I like that pick. I like Bobby Green in this fight. I think I like his attributes. He's a 3-inch height advantage over Raging Al. I love me some Raging Al. I'm afraid that if I pick against him, he's going to like pop out of my closet and beat me up. But I do like Bobby Green in this fight. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people and take this win over Iaquinta. Let us move on.
Vegas likes him too. He's -175 and Iaquinta's +140. I always see things like that. And I'm so curious. I'm like, if both of these guys were active, I wonder if those odds would be like totally flipped. Like, I wonder how much has to do with non-activity on Iaquinta's part.
Okay. In the featured bout of the prelims, what an interesting fight. Alex Pereira, of fame of the only guy to knock out Israel Adesanya. Am I correct? I believe I'm correct.
Yep.
He might not be the only guy. I think he's the only guy, but he definitely knocked Izzy out cold in a kickboxing match. He takes on the Greek, Andreas Michailidis. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name a little bit. What an interesting matchup, because Alex Pereira trains out of Teixeira MMA and fitness. He's very young in his MMA career. He's mainly been a kickboxer, has a stunning kickboxing record. That being said, he only has 4 fights in professional MMA. He lost his first fight by rear naked choke. He has won his last 3, all by knockout. Omar, let me start with you. What are your impressions of Pereira, and what do you think is going to happen in his UFC debut?
I think Pereira has a fantastic kickboxing skill set. I think that's really what he brings to the table. He brings solid striking to the table. I think if he runs into a Magomed, he's going to have a real issue. I can tell you that. But until that time, I think his striking is probably enough to bank on. So if it were me, I'm probably going to go knockout round 1.
Okay, Mark. Michailidis, again, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name. He's 1-1 in the UFC, and he takes on, he's hoping to sort of spoil the party for Pereira here. So what do you make of this matchup at middleweight?
Yeah, as you kind of alluded to in the intro of this matchup, this is a fight that we're only talking about because of one man. And that man is Alex Pereira, the man who knocked out Israel Adesanya in kickboxing, of course. But he's one of the greatest kickboxers on the planet. He was very recently the Glory, the champion of Glory. As you said, not much experience in MMA. It feels to me like this debut of his may be a little bit overhyped. I honestly have no idea, but here's why I say that. First off, he was losing his fights, Izzy, pretty clearly before catching him with that KO shot. Now, obviously, he's a beast and has held 1 million titles, so I'm not taking anything away from his kickboxing credentials, but I'm just saying that's part of that Izzy story. But secondly, and more importantly, his MMA career is 3 fights from 2015 to 2016, where he went 2-1. Then a return to MMA in 2020, where he beat Thomas Powell, whose current MMA record is 5-6. There's zero high-level MMA experience on this resume. Plus, after beating Thomas Powell, he then went back to kickboxing, fought twice there in 2021, one of which was in September, like literally this September that just happened. So it's not even like he's been dedicating himself to MMA now. So I don't know how much you can bank on this dude coming in and fulfilling all of this hype. Now, Michailidis, we admittedly haven't learned a ton about yet. He's well-rounded. He can wrestle. He can submit you. He's got subs on his resume, which will obviously be the avenue he'll look to here, at least the wrestling with Pereira. There's no real way to pick this fight. Pereira will have a 4-inch height and a 5-inch reach advantage on Michailidis. Michailidis is used to striking. He kind of bangs it out, so it may be hard for him to resist. And I have to think the UFC tried to make a matchup for Pereira that they thought he would win. Plus, he's been training with Glover, and Glover's been like endorsing him hugely. So I will just bank on that and say that the kickboxing alone will be enough to get through this one, and I'll say Pereira by knockout.
I like that. I agree. I think he's going to get it done by KO. He clearly has some big power and incredible kickboxing skills. So yeah,
ton of power.
Ton of power. Oh yeah,
that's like his calling card in kickboxing is his power.
Could he be like the Giga Chikadze of middleweight? Maybe.
It's possible. He's got a lot of work to do, I think.
I'm really interested to see what his ground game is, or not necessarily his ground game, but at least his ability to stay off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really to me what's going to dictate what his real ceiling is in the UFC, especially in that division, because you got some killers once you start getting up there. And if his first loss was already a rear naked choke submission, what are we really looking forward to going forward? Like I said,
right.
I don't think Michailidis has necessarily what it takes. And I think his record shows a propensity of when he gets hit, he goes down. And I think Pereira has more than what it takes to put him down in that sense. So I think he'll win this specific fight, but I don't know how much further it goes from there.
Okay.
I heard a great quote from Glover. Actually, it might have, no, it wasn't on the countdown. I heard it somewhere else, but he said, about Pereira, he said, when he hits you in one side of your ribs, the other side hurts. That's how much power he has. I thought that was good.
Nice. Well, guys, let us now venture into the main card of UFC 268. A fantastic high-profile bantamweight bout between Frankie, the Answer Edgar, and Marlon Cheeto Vera. Frankie Edgar, the legend, of course, two-division title holder in the UFC, getting a little long in the tooth, and of course, coming off of that scary flying knee knockout from Cory Sandhagen. Marlon Vera coming off of a win against David Grant. So one guy kind of on the decline, maybe on the back nine of his career. Another guy who's probably, rising in his career, that being Cheeto Vera. Mark, let me go to you first on this. What is your take on this very interesting and very cool matchup at bantamweight?
This fight. I hate this fight, mainly because I love them both so much, and I don't want either of them to lose this fight. If Edgar loses it, it kind of suggests that he may be done at the top level. If Vera loses, he blows this big opportunity that he has to finally break through. So it sucks that somebody has to, but the fight itself is freaking awesome. It's such a good matchup.
It is.
Frankie Edgar, as we all know, is the man. He is a legend. He is one of the greatest lighter weight fighters that we've ever seen.
Yes.
But he's 40 years old, and after never being finished in his whole career, he has now been KO'd in 3 of his last 6 and 2 of his last 3, for what that's worth. It's possible that we are at the end of Frankie Edgar.
Yeah.
Marlon Vera is a guy who's just double tough. He gives no shits. He can fight anywhere. He's constantly improving. He's going to put it on you all fight with a pace. It's a tough one to call. If Frankie Edgar is still Frankie Edgar, I would take him to win this fight by decision, leaning primarily on his wrestling. If he's not, then Marlon is absolutely a guy who is going to be able to scramble away at times and crack Edgar and put it on him. Marlon's going to have a 2-inch height advantage, a 2-inch reach advantage. They're not huge, but they could matter.
Yeah.
It's hard for me because you boil it down and there is no one on Marlon Vera's resume who fights anything like Frankie Edgar. You could look at it. There's no one to say like, okay, this is what happened against that guy. It's not there. So it's going to be a tough challenge and a challenge that is going to be unique for Vera to have to overcome. Whereas there's a lot of people like Marlon Vera on Frankie Edgar's resume. Of course, he's fought everyone, every type of guy there is. So
that's a great point.
It may not be the smartest take, and I may end up regretting it. And maybe some of my Edgar fandom is impacting this. I am going to roll with Frankie Edgar one more time to win a decision. He is the underdog for what it's worth, which is weird to even see. He's plus 145. Marlon Vera is minus 175.
Omar, give us your take. Frankie the Answer Edgar versus Cheeto Vera.
I also hate this fight. I root for both of these guys every opportunity I get, and to have to figure out who's going to lose to who. And it does have real implications when it comes to, especially Frankie's career, I think more than Cheeto's. I, I, it sucks to say, but I really think that at this point, Chito just has more to offer than Frankie does. I think if I think about the way they both strike on the feet, Frankie's always been about constant movement, constant pressure, trying to keep the pace up. I don't think Chito's ever really had a problem with that. And I think a lot of times Chito has used that to his advantage as well. So I don't really know if that's really going to play or give Edgar a significant advantage when it comes to the striking. And I also think Chito is going to have a range advantage when it comes to the striking as well. I could be wrong, but in my head visually, that seems to probably be the case. The other thing to keep in mind is that speed is the other thing that Edgar brings to the table physically, that I also don't necessarily think he's going to have a significant advantage over when it comes to Chito. Where I do think they will differ is the experience. Edgar has infinite more cage time than Chito does. Yeah. Edgar has seen all kinds of looks, all kinds of been in all kinds of it in difficult and adverse positions, has been as low as you can go in a fight and has come back to win those fights. You know, we've seen Edgar go through literal hell, and we've seen Chito fall in, you know, similar situations in the past. With that being said, as difficult as it is for me, I'm going to go with Chito by decision.
Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard 3 is one of my all-time favorite fights.
Such a great fight.
All time. That was like real life Rocky Balboa, man. That fight right there.
Especially
back
after
from that
two.
adversity. Oh my God. What a fight. I could watch that fight right now and get chills.
3 would not have been nearly as epic if 2 had not just happened.
That's right. True. You're right.
Like, because 3 started off just like 2, and we were like, no fucking way is this happening again.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, and then to see him just lay him out at the end of that fight. Oh
yeah, man. Yeah.
Such a good fight.
Anyhow, I think I'm sorry, do you have one last
I was just gonna say to anybody who's listening who's never watched Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard 2 and Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard 3, do yourself the favor.
Yeah.
Take the half hour and or the hour and watch them both, because you need to. One of the greatest back and forth and comebacks of all time.
Yeah, you don't need to watch one. One was much earlier in their careers, but 2 and 3 are
2 and 3
required viewing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. It was a great little rivalry there for a year. That being said, my take on Chito Vera versus Frankie Edgar real quick. I think Chito, I don't think he's going to have the kind of killer put you to sleep power to really damage Frankie that much to get a stoppage. But I do think we're going to see Frankie just not have enough. He's not going to have enough power. I mean, he could win on points because he's such a good boxer. He has such unique movement, but I'd see Chito Vera taking this one by unanimous decision. And I may be seeing Frankie Edgar lay down his gloves in the octagon. We'll see.
Wow, you think we're there already? God, I hope not.
I think he's 40. Chito's 28.
Well, so Frankie has said publicly that he has zero intentions of any retirement anytime soon. Don't ask him what the future looks like.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I mean, he's still ranked. Like, what is he currently ranked? 8th. I have him higher than that, I think.
Do you really? Wow.
I have him 6th.
I mean, okay. If he says that, he says that. He always comes in great shape, and he's still so talented. He'll always be a talented fighter. He's just 40, and he has so many miles on that body.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, if he loses to Marlon Vera, that ranking is going to change. I have Marlon Vera ranked. Let's see for what it's worth. I'm ranked 19th, Marlon Vera. So yeah.
Let us move on. A really, really fun fight in the featherweight division. Shane Burgos versus Billy Quarantillo. I like this fight a lot. I really like Shane Burgos rather. Even with that incredible knockout he suffered at the hands of Edson Barboza in his last outing. That was the craziest knockout I've ever seen. It was like a 10 seconds delayed knockout. Billy Q coming off of a TKO victory over Gabriel Benitez. Omar, let me start with you. Burgos versus Billy Q. What's your take?
It's a fantastic fight. Fantastic matchup.
Yeah, man.
I'm a big Shane Burgos fan. That dude's got a ton of heart when it comes to the fight game. He's like, just the last fight we were talking about, his body betrayed him. He was in it. He was in it. He was ready to go. He took that hit and was like, I felt it. Let's keep going. And his body was like, hello? No.
I don't think it was his body. I think it was his brain.
No.
Yeah.
So his
body kept fighting. His brain was starting to shut off.
Yeah. Yeah. But he was 100% still in it. There was no quit in that man. It was purely physiological that his body was like, no, I'm done here, sir.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that Shane Burgos is in there to the end. I love the way he fights. Very, very aggressive.
Yeah, man.
Definitely not a point fighter by any stretch of the imagination, for better or worse. And Quarantillo, to be honest, is very similarly the same way. He does fight out of Tampa, which is dope. And I feel like I've seen him fight in person before, but I can't be sure at this point. Oh, I think I saw him in the Waterson versus Angela Hill fight, if I'm not mistaken. No, I'm probably mistaken. Anyway, Quarantillo, fantastic fighter as well. He's a lot more, if I'm not mistaken, of a ground fighter. Am I wrong about that?
Nope.
Right. So it's definitely,
but yeah,
I mean, he puts it all together.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But he does rely on his ground game a lot more than like Shane Burgos would, for example. Like
correct. Yes.
So it should be interesting stylistically. I do expect there to be some shots from Quarantillo, but I expect the first round to be very, very striking heavy.
Okay.
As far as a pick is concerned.
Oh yeah, give me that pick.
I'm gonna go with Shane by knockout round 2.
Okay, I like it. Mark, what is your thoughts and what is your pick ultimately of Burgos versus Billy Q at featherweight? I like saying it like Connor.
So I like both of these guys a lot. This is a cool fight. It is a huge jump for Billy Q. Like his best win thus far, as you said, is over Gabriel Benitez in his last fight. And sure, Benitez is a good fighter, but he is not close to the level of Shane Burgos. Like for reference, I have Shane as my number 12 featherweight, and I have Billy Q as my number 40. He just hasn't proven it yet. So I'm a little surprised that we are jumping all the way up to a Shane Burgos right now. And it's not like Burgos has looked weak or anything. Like, yeah, he's lost a couple in a row to Barboza and Emmett, but he was going to war with each of those guys, and he was giving it just as much as he was taking it. So it's a tough matchup for Billy Q. I thought maybe there'd be like an in-between before we got to this level. He's going to have to look to wrestle in this one. Maybe he'll find some success there at times, but Burgos is an absolute dog. He will have an advantage on the feet anytime it takes place there. I'll say Quarantillo toughs it out. I do think he's good. I think this might just be too much too soon, and that Burgos kind of puts it on him at some moments and takes a clear decision.
Yeah, I like Burgos by UD in this one. Burgos the Hurricane. I love that nickname. Yeah, you're right. I think Burgos, the word is perfect. He's a dog, man. He could get knocked out and he'll keep fighting you. Yeah. That's how much of a dog he is. Let us move on, guys. It only gets juicier and juicier with this damn card. We're not even close to being done. Here we go. This is another one of those cards that has not just a co-main event, but has a co-main event. My God. And this might be the fight that I'm looking forward to most in this card. In the lightweight division, Justin the Highlight Gaethje takes on Michael Chandler. Ladies and gentlemen, my goodness. There's so much to say about these two guys. Mark, I'm going to send it to you first. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably know who these two guys are and what they're capable of. Mark, what did you take Gaethje Chandler?
Yeah, it feels crazy that this is not even the co-main event. Like we said that last week for Hooker and Makhachev. This feels way crazier.
Yes.
Yep.
Clearly.
I mean, my God, this matchup, the violence potential is just through the roof. Both are killers. Both come in there to just bang. They lay it all on the line. You pray we get what we're expecting in this one, because it could be absolute fireworks. In terms of breaking it down, Gaethje is the taller man by 3 inches, but Chandler actually has the 1 inch reach advantage because he has a long reach for his size. This is one of those fights that I think you just pick with your gut, honestly, but I'll try to break it down before I do that. Now there's every chance that these guys just come out there, decide to bang it out in the middle of the octagon until one man falls. That's even likely, I think. But one angle I do want to point out that no one seems to be discussing is that Michael Chandler can wrestle. He can scramble and he can sub you. And the last time we saw Justin Gaethje, he looked lost on the mat against Khabib. Now I get it.
Khabib, though.
Wait. I get it that it was Khabib. But we don't see Gaethje on the mat often. And he looked very bad. And for a comparison purpose, Conor McGregor, of all people, did a way better job on the mat against Khabib than Gaethje did. Poirier did as well. I mean, Poirier is good on the mat, but I'm just saying. Gaethje was supposed to be this defensive wrestler, and we weren't sure about his grappling. The defensive wrestling wasn't much there. The grappling, he looked legitimately lost. So the wrestling may still be strong. I don't know if Chandler could get him down, but I do think it's possible that Chandler sees that and says, you know what? I wonder if I could exploit that if I could get Gaethje down to the mat. I wonder how easy I could transition to a choke or something along those lines. On top of that, I don't like the fact that Gaethje is yet to fight since that Khabib loss. It's been an entire year off now.
Over now. Yep.
Yeah. So, it's an angle. Granted, I don't think it plays out that way because I think they're both going to come in there and literally be like, no takedowns. Let's just kill each other.
Mm-hmm.
But with all that being said, I come back to where I said you pick this one with your gut, and my gut is telling me to pick Justin Gaethje. I'm honestly shocked. I just looked up the odds right before when we were talking about the last fight. Gaethje is minus 200. Chandler is plus 170. I thought it was gonna be like a pick 'em for sure. It's wild to me that Gaethje is that much of a favorite.
Yeah.
But I do think I'm going to pick him. Chandler has a ton of heart, so I don't want this to come across as like a knock on Chandler saying he doesn't. But I think Gaethje's heart may end up being the differentiating factor in this one. I just think it's so damn hard to make him go away.
He's a zombie.
Yes. I also love the fact that he's been training with Kamaru Usman for like a good year now. That can only be helping his game tremendously.
Yeah.
I wish so badly this was a 5-round fight because if it was, I think that would probably favor Gaethje even more. But I'm going to go with my gut here and say Justin Gaethje by knockout in round 2.
Wow. Knockout. Oh, my God. Didn't think you're going to go there. Omar, what is your take? Gaethje, Chandler.
I'm going to get even crazier.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to go into the whole thing because Mark laid it out, the foundation perfectly. What I will say is my final determination is based on something I texted you guys earlier. Trevor Whitman, better coach than Henry Hooft. Just my opinion.
That's,
so as a result, Justin Gaethje probably going to be better prepared than Michael Chandler when it comes to the striking game at minimum. And I don't think that Chandler, I'm not going to give Gaethje shit for not being able to handle Khabib on the ground. It doesn't even sound like DC handles Khabib on the ground. Not going to give him anybody shit. I will say it'll be very telling because we haven't really seen Gaethje in a position on the ground or even being threatened to be on the ground within his UFC career other than the Khabib fight. So there isn't a lot to take away from how he's going to react to Chandler potentially going for a takedown. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case in this fight just based off of the way that they both seem to want to approach it. Obviously, plans are plans until you get punched in the face, so we'll see what happens. But based on everything that we've known right now, how everything seems to be going down, how both of these guys have already presented themselves in past fights, I think Justin Gaethje is just going to come out sharper and edgier in the end, and we'll end up with a knockout round 1.
Who? Gaethje? Gaethje round 1 knockout. My God.
And this is not a knock on Michael Chandler. I love Michael Chandler.
Chandler's great, man.
This is basically putting two of the sharpest swords together and seeing which one breaks first. It's crazy.
Okay. Justin Gaethje went undefeated in his first 18 fights. Comes to the UFC, beats the brakes off of Michael Johnson. He then has a war with Eddie Alvarez, a war with Dustin Poirier. Then he knocks out James Vick. He knocks out Edson Barboza. He knocks out Donald Cerrone. He knocks out Tony Ferguson. And then he goes up against a Khabib, who, like you said, is just an anomaly of a wrestler.
But here's the thing you have to keep in mind. If you look at everything you just said, right? His first 18 fights he had before he was coming into the UFC, all of those fights, if you look at the way he fought, he was reckless as shit. Like, he goes in there, he throws down, he'll get in your face, he'll throw leg kicks from the clinch, he'll do all kinds of crazy nonsense. Like, he was just about getting in these fights. He would get rocked most of the time, come back and still end up winning.
Yeah.
When he got into the
Johnson
UFC,
one's a perfect example. Johnson rocked him multiple times in that fight.
Yes.
right. And Johnson was the one who ended up melting in the end. And that's frankly just a testament to Gaethje's toughness, but also the opportunities that Johnson has in his game and in his mental fortitude. When you got to Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, two guys that frankly don't really mentally break when it comes to the fight game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both of them ended up in wars with Gaethje. And frankly, it could have gone either way with both of them. Neither one of them were like super dominant over the other. It was just a matter of who was going to go down first. He was playing a game of chicken and like flipping a coin in the air and seeing what happened.
Yep.
After that Dustin Poirier fight,
Correct.
I wouldn't be surprised to find out that that's when him and Trevor Whitman got together.
Yeah.
Because at that point, your boy started moving his head, started moving laterally, started having a lot more purpose to all of the things he was doing when it came to the striking. Laid out Vic, laid out Barboza, laid out Cerrone, laid out. I mean, if Ferguson wasn't one of the best performances that you've ever seen from Justin Gaethje,
Oh God,
you haven't seen Justin Gaethje fight before, because that was the singular best performance he's ever had in his career. And I really think Trevor Whitman did something to his game and has elevated his striking to a different level at this point that I really think it will show with this Chandler fight.
But now let's talk about, go ahead.
I am pretty sure that he was always with Whitman, but I do specifically remember post Alvarez Poirier losses, Gaethje saying something along the lines of that he finally accepted that he had to change the way he fought and was open to changing his style.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But now let's look real quick. Michael Chandler. Okay. Justin Gaethje clearly he has a better record than Michael Chandler. He's better on paper, and clearly he has a better coach. I think I agree with you, Omar. And probably on paper, better striking overall than Michael Chandler. That being said, stylistically, Michael Chandler is very compact. The guy's a pit bull, and he can wrestle his ass off. And I think Mark alluded to this earlier. I can see Michael Chandler creating a scramble, and then on the way up, catching Justin Gaethje and really hurting him, and maybe even knocking him out. That can happen. He almost did it to Charles in a very similar fashion.
And Chandler is definitely faster of the two.
Yes.
And not only that, but he is a guy who can't resist the scramble a lot of times. So as much as he's saying, oh, I'm going to bang it out, like the scramble is so natural to him that I could see it end up in there.
I also feel like Gaethje's so used to being rocked that it may not worry him as much as if when Chandler gets rocked.
Very.
Gaethje knows
the
how
main
to
reason I'm
manage,
picking
think,
Gaethje.
himself. You know what I mean? Like he knows how to manage himself when he gets on those wobbly legs. I don't know if Chandler does. Chandler's been put out before.
I think if you ask me to put it in one sentence, I'm picking Gaethje because I think he can weather the storm more than Michael Chandler can weather the storm.
Yeah.
You're probably
and
right.
we keep talking over Mike, so Mike, please go.
That's okay. No, it's okay. To keep it moving and to make it interesting, since you both took Gaethje, I will take Chandler first round knockout.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Probably not going to happen. Let us move on finally to the main event of UFC 268 in the women's strawweight division. The rematch is happening. Thug Rose Namajunas defending her women's strawweight championship against Zhang Weili. She knocked Zhang out in their first fight by head kick, and now Zhang is back to try to get some revenge. Mark, let me go to you first. What is your take on Thug Rose defending her strap?
I mean, I'm happy anytime I get to watch Thug Rose.
Love
I
her.
don't love an immediate rematch like this. I wish they would have booked Rose against Esparza. I thought Esparza was deserving. I don't really get why Li deserved the immediate rematch, but even more than that, I don't love it just because there's no story to me. Like, we didn't get to see anything good out of Li to say like, oh, look what she did here. Like, she's going to do this now, to raise the intrigue after seeing her get knocked out cold. So I don't know. I kind of view it the same way I viewed it the first time. We do have this one added wrinkle of that Li is training with Henry Cejudo, which I actually find very interesting. As cringy as he may be, I do really hold Henry Cejudo in high regard. I think he has a great mind for fighting, and I'm sure he's helping Li significantly. But I just think Rose is a level above these girls. Beating Joanna twice really solidified that for me, and both of them were more clear victories than the one Li had over her. I picked Rose to do it the first time. I'm going to pick her again to do it this time. I think that to give herself the best chance to win, Li really needs to try to make it a scrap. But I think Rose is just too damn clean to even allow that. If Li tries to lean on the wrestling, which is possible with all this Cejudo training, then half of Rose's career wins have come by submission. I think that's a dangerous game to play. It's not that I don't think Li can win. I do think she can. I just don't really see how you would pick her based off what we have to work with, if that makes any sense. I'm stunned by the lines. Stunned. The favorite is Li, granted barely. It's practically a pick'em, but Rose is minus 105. Li is minus 115. I thought Rose was certainly going to be the favorite. I don't know how she's not. But I am going to say Rose finishes her again. I will say Rose third round TKO.
Omar, what you take? Thug Rose, Li.
I think it's super interesting. I also don't necessarily care for the immediate rematch, but since we have it, I think Li technically has the tools that aren't required to beat Rose. I think where she really fucked up in the first fight was not taking Rose seriously. And I got a lot of that impression just based off of her body language in the fight. It didn't really seem like she was concerned about what Rose actually had to offer, right? Like Li at that point probably was feeling herself quite a bit. She had beaten a bunch of people at that point. She won against Joanna. She beat Jessica for the belt. She had a run leading up to those moments, but I don't know, especially when you look at everything that Rose has done and you look at how good Rose is, it's crazy to think she's only has 10 wins on her record. Like, that's insanity. And so if you're Li, in your head, I would imagine I'm 22 wins. The only person who's ever beat me was my first MMA loss. Why would this girl all of a sudden have what it takes to beat me if Joanna couldn't beat me? If Andrade, the current champion, couldn't beat me? Right? Like, I think she fell into this complacency of being the champion where she was feeling herself a little too much. Maybe didn't take Rose as seriously as she should have, or at least her weapons as seriously as she should have. And you could see she got lazy in that fight. That her defending that leg or her thinking that there was a leg kick coming when instead it was a head kick was just her playing the game, like her reacting to the rhythm and the momentum and not really being in the moment in the fight. And it cost her big. I hope she's identified the issues that she had in that fight. I think Henry will probably be one of the people that will help her get there, especially with his competitive attitude. But I don't think this goes down at all like the first fight at all. I think this is a much more competitive fight. I actually think this fight becomes a war. I think in the end, it will end up being a decision because I love Rose. I'm going Rose. But I really would not be surprised if Li comes out on top.
All right. Going for 2
hours. What are you thinking is the question.
Oh, good God. Let's see. All right. I think Li is going to take it into decision. She's probably going to have more significant strikes. I think she has more power when she lands is going to be more consequential, and she might take a decision. It might be a close decision. And it's going to set us up for the trilogy.
God, would it be an immediate trilogy? Poor Carlos Esparza, Christ.
I've never really liked Carlos Esparza, so I don't care.
Yikes.
Are we ready for this
Yikes.
main event, boys? I think we are.
We're
Here
ready.
we go. Rematch of the ages. In the welterweight division, Kamaru Usman defends his strap against Colby Chaos Covington. Omar, let me start with you. What is your take? The rematch. The first fight did not go well for Covington. He got his jaw broken. He's back. He wants some more.
It wasn't broken.
According to Colby, his jaw was not broken.
In the words of Usman, I broke your face. What are you thinking? You think Covington has a shot?
No. I mean, so here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. I don't like Colby I don't like his antics. I don't like his bullshit, whatever. Realistically, he is one of the top guys in that division. The way he fights, just it speaks for itself. Whether you like him personally or not, the style that he has works. It's very effective. The problem is Kamaru has a very similar style and does not really play into the same bullshit that a lot of other people will play into when they fight against Covington. One of which is being on the back foot the whole time. Another thing is the cardio getting killed as a result of, frankly, being on the back foot and being defensive the whole time, and having to defend the constant chain wrestling from Colby.
Yeah.
From one shot to another, to a transition, to another, to striking, to back down. All that shit over time will wear on somebody and they get exhausted. One of the better examples is probably RDA. The RDA fight against Colby Covington was super telling as to it doesn't really matter how necessarily good you are in one aspect. If you can't keep up with Colby, you're not going to be able to keep up. You're just going to go with whatever he needs to do. Kamaru doesn't present any of those same vulnerabilities. If anything, Kamaru probably does the same thing, but better. And on top of that, since their last fight, he has been with Trevor Whitman. Kamaru's hands have gotten exponentially better than what they were the last time that he fought Colby. The other thing is Colby, in my opinion, throws pillow hands. He's a very volume-esque fighter.
He is.
He's very one to throw 100, 150 punches in a round, none of which, frankly, though, have any pop to them as far as power, right? He's not knocking anybody out with one of those punches. He might not come out with 10 or 12 consecutive punches, but not one. And Kamaru is not the type of person to stay in one spot and get tagged up to that extent. Now that we've gone through all that, it's all really to say there's nothing for me to believe that Colby has gotten any better at what he was doing before, that he could present Kamaru with any new challenges in this fight. Kamaru has gotten better, has continued to fight and improve and prove. I didn't really want that alliteration, but to prove that he is getting better in the division and is still the champion, the top cream of the crop. Not going to beat me. You're going to have to kill me to take away the belt.
Yeah.
I don't see him. I don't see Colby being able to present any kind of a threat to Usman, especially now.
Okay. You got a pick?
I'm going to go with Kamaru TKO round 4.
Okay. Mark, what are your thoughts? Usman versus Covington.
I'm so hyped for this fight. I'm very glad this is happening and that we are continuing this story. It feels like something that needed to continue. And now we either conclude it or we set up one of the biggest trilogies ever. It truly, this rivalry feels kind of more like a movie than most others in the UFC. It has so much real heat, which adds to it. The first fight was an absolute classic. The way they've still gone at it since then. They're the two best welterweights on the planet still. You can't really say otherwise. It has it all. Kamaru, as we know, as we've said multiple times on this show, has springboarded off his victory over Colby into being a truly incredible champion and arguably the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world today. Mm-hmm. He keeps improving performance after performance, blows you away. Colby Covington, because of who he is a guy who tends to get criminally underrated. He has still given Kamaru Usman the toughest test of his entire career in the UFC, and there's no way around that. He is really good. And if I remember correctly, I was debating whether it was 3-1 Colby or 2-2 last time when I was watching live through 4 rounds before Colby lost. So he was in that fight, every bit of it, until it went south. In addition to the heat, the reason that I love seeing this fight again is because of the possibility of how significantly different the game plans could be the first time. The first time we saw 2 wrestlers never attempt to wrestle. It wouldn't shock me if either one of them looks to this time. But specifically, if I'm game planning for Colby, I'm looking for him to grapple more. And I felt like this the first fight as well, the whole time I was watching that fight. In the first fight, I felt like Colby sacrificed his pace and cardio advantage that he has on everyone by allowing it to simply be a kickboxing match. Like his name is Chaos, and he forgot the chaos. Like, even if he's not truly looking to take Usman down as his main strategy because of how hard it is to likely do that, I still think he needs to look to clinch more, to threaten takedowns, to wear on Usman, to lean on him, to utilize that pace and pressure more and make Usman have to react to different things coming at him other than just strikes, and see how Usman responds to that. And maybe Usman responds in a way that makes Colby say, okay, I don't think this is the move. But if I'm him, I want to find that out. And I do think Colby will do that out of the gate. And because of that, I do think Colby will actually be winning this fight early and have a lot of people saying, holy shit. But I don't think he will win it throughout. I think the tide starts to turn mid round 2, maybe round 3, and that Kamaru starts to figure it out. And once he does, I think that Kamaru is simply the better mixed martial artist. His improvements on the feet, like Omar said, have been so noticeable. His jab in particular, as well as his increased ability to put power behind his punches that already hurt Colby the first time they fought when there wasn't even that much power behind them in comparison to what he has now. I mean, he just one-hitter quitted Jorge Masvidal, which no one does. Trevor Whitman, Kamaru Usman is a different animal. And I think Whitman goes 3-0 on this night. It's crazy that Whitman coaches 3 people and they're the 3 feature fights of this night consecutively. Gaethje, Rose, right. Usman. He literally only coaches 3 people. That's his whole team.
Wow.
I will say that I think a lot of people will be surprised if Colby wins. I will not. I think he's that good and wants it that bad and could find a way to pull it off. But I think that Kamaru eventually starts to dictate the fight. I debated if I wanted to say finish. I'm going to say decision for Kamaru, 48-47. I could see like a 49-46 where really it felt a lot closer than that score was, but he edged him out. But I'll say 48-47 Kamaru defends his title.
I love the specificity. Okay. I think you're spot on in that Colby can't do the same thing and expect different results, of course. And he is not going to win a kickboxing match against Usman. Usman's too strong. Usman is bigger, I think much more stronger, much more powerful, much more likely to hurt Colby than Colby is to hurt Usman. So I think you're right. I think if Colby mixes it up, if he tries to press Usman up against the cage and get him in the clinch, if he tries to work for a takedown, that might surprise Usman because I don't think he expects anyone to try to take him down. He could make it interesting. Otherwise, I just think this stylistically, it's not the best matchup for Colby Covington. Who knows?
Well,
I mean, maybe he has a great night and he throws a ton of volume and maybe Usman is flat, which he never is. So I see Usman taking this one. I'm going to say Usman by decision.
Yeah, Usman seems like the type of guy that even on his worst day is just
so good. Oh my God.
And he knows how to win. Like we were talking about John Jones before, where his dominance might have waned, his ability to know how to win never has. And I think Usman is kind of in that same juncture. I also can't imagine a world where Colby is going to be like significantly dominant on the ground to Usman.
Oh, I don't think he can be. I just think that he needs to offer a lot of different looks to have a shot.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking of that as a point. I don't think Usman is going to allow it. Colby does, even if Colby does, shoot for a couple takedowns or even feign a couple takedowns, go for the leg just to come up high again. Like Usman could present those exact same challenges to Colby, if not worse. And so I don't see Usman at all being surprised by anything Colby does, because I frankly think he does everything Colby does better.
I don't think he puts a better pace on people, which I think Colby needs to mix up his attacks in order to put that pace. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. It's more so that I just think Colby needs to try it to have any chance. Because as Mike said, if he comes out and says, okay, we're both great wrestlers, I'm not going to bother, we're going to have a kickboxing match again, I don't think Colby has any chance.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think
Agreed.
I totally get your pace thing. I think the main difference too, if we're looking at the both of them, Colby probably has a lot more time standing up, using his pressure forward and his striking and his mixing it up to sort of set that pace. Whereas Kamaru will take certain opportunities to strike and then clinch, at least in the past, before Trevor Whitman, clinch, stifle the person, take them away from their own game, and then get back into his game. So like the way they controlled the pace, I think was different, but similarly effective, if that makes sense.
I get that. I also think that a big factor for me that I failed to mention is Usman's mental.
Yes.
I feel like he is the better fighter in terms of adjusting on the fly in fight, and also that his mental toughness and commitment is just unbreakable. And Colby's tough as shit too, don't get me wrong. But there's something about Usman's mental that makes me feel like he's nearly impossible to beat.
Yeah, I guess if the one thought I also had too was when it came to the no wrestling in the first fight, I wondered if mindset wise, especially when I think about the two and how their mindsets might work, or at least Kamaru's more than Colby's. When it came to the not wrestling, in my head, the decision from Kamaru was probably, I don't need to against Colby. Whereas for Colby, it might have been, I don't think I can. And so there may be some challenges there depending on how that goes in the second fight. But I don't see Colby being able to do anything significant against Kamaru.
Yeah. It's gonna be one hell of a fight.
100%.
We will see. Got me so friggin' hyped. It was a great
man.
countdown.
Hey, any other fights or fighters you guys want to mention for the listeners to keep an eye on?
I will spotlight one man. There's some other guys to watch on this card. Like Dustin Jacoby just jumped on this card as a late fill-in. He's fighting John Allen. Phil Hawes is on this card. He's fighting Chris Curtis. The reason we didn't really do those fights for you guys is because the second guy in the fight is kind of lesser. But I will talk about the debut of Ian Gary. This is another fight where it's really about the one guy. He's fighting Jordan Williams, who's 0-2 in the UFC so far, has not looked great. But Ian Gary is the Cage Warriors welterweight champion out of Ireland. 23 years old, the self-dubbed future of MMA. He's an undefeated fighter, well-rounded fighter, seems to have a great mindset mentally. He left Ireland and joined Sanford MMA almost solely because Vicente Luque and Gilbert Burns trained there, and he wanted to go against top welterweights in the world every day in training, which I respect. And it's very possible that we are about to see a bigger European debut and Cage Warriors alumni debut than the one of Paddy Pimblett a few weeks back. Oh. Maybe not as much fanfare, but possibly more significance in the fight game when we eventually look back on this debut. And I think Ian Gary will do it in style by second round TKO.
Oh, baby. Like it. If you didn't know, now you know.
Yes, sir.
Hey, here's an interesting question. I want to close on this. For such a stacked card, give me your pick for fight of the night.
Fuck, that's not fair.
There's a lot of choices.
Fight of the night.
Honestly, the one that has almost a guaranteed fight of the night on it is Gaethje and Chandler.
I'm gonna say that ends too quick to be fight of the night. I'm going with the main event.
I'm gonna go Thug Rose Weili. I think it's gonna be potentially a great 5-round war.
God, that's such the thing about all. So here's the thing about all three of these fights, especially now that Kamaru has proven he can knock people the fuck out now.
Yeah, man.
Either one of these fights, the Kamaru fight, the Rose fight, and the Gaethje Chandler fight, either one of these could be 5-round wars. Well, I guess Gaethje and Chandler's 3 rounds?
It is. It's got to be. Why would it be 5 rounds?
Boo!
Why would it be 5 rounds? It's not a co-main.
Boo! That's
Not a
terrible.
co-main, and their last name is not Diaz.
That's terrible. Anyway, I just those could be wars, or those could be one-hitter quitters. It really could go either way, and I'm gonna have goosebumps for every single one of those fights.
It is interesting to me, as I touched on, that you have the 3 Whitman fighters
Never
fighting
happened.
consecutively with Gaethje, Rose, Usman, because it makes me wonder what happens mentally to the others if there's a loss. Like if Gaethje gets knocked out, what does that do to Rose and Usman? Or if Rose gets knocked out, what does that do to Usman and so on? It's interesting to think about. But I think they're all mentally strong. I mean, I don't know. Rose, as we've seen, like Rose is mentally strong, but also gets rattled easily at the same time. I don't really know how to word what I'm trying to say, but you guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, if Gaethje gets KO'd bad, you never know how that could affect her. So it's an interesting angle.
Rose seems to be the type that she'd be okay with something like that as long as it doesn't affect her bubble, like her aura thing. Like, start throwing shit at her, she's gonna have a problem. But like when things go on outside, then she's able to contain herself.
I could even see her not watch it and just be like, "No one tell me what's happening."
That's 100% true. That I totally could believe.
She's just gonna like say like her Hail Marys and like the Lord's Prayer over and over again.
Right. Although, would you hear it? Would you hear the announcement at the end of the fight when Buffer's announcing it? No matter where you were in the arena, probably.
Like, put on some headphones.
Yeah, and you probably would hear microphones and like volume and stuff, but I doubt you would actually hear clearly what's going on. It probably sound muffled.
Interesting.
I feel like in the arena, it would be hard to not know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Do you guys want to know the worst part of this entire card?
I'm not there.
I can't watch it.
Why
what
not?
The hell?
I have to go to a wedding.
Oh, why?
You have terrible
Who's
friends.
getting married?
My coworker's son.
Tell your coworker's son.
Yeah, what the hell? You just get a cutout of yourself and
You'll
send
send
that
him a
shit to
card.
the wedding.
Send him a
Tough.
look. You'll send him a
Look,
card.
I work with 2 people, my dad and one other guy, and it's been 10 years, and his son is getting married. So
I guess that's a little bit different. I guess
it's tough, but I think I'm gonna pull the old Irish exit right around 10 o'clock and have Taryn drive the car and pull the pay-per-view up on my phone.
If you were, you know what you should do? You should bring your laptop with you.
Bring your
laptop. Bring a book bag.
Everyone
bring
will
your
hover
laptop,
around the table.
bring an HDMI cable. Find a TV in there somewhere that's hooked up. Plug in and just go on that.
Look, they're cutting the cake. Yeah.
You're gonna have a
hovered
group
around
of
me.
12, and
Why
you
does
got a group
Mark
of 12
have a
guys around you
book
who's gonna
bag?
ruin it for you. They're gonna come and just blow your whole spot up. All the women are gonna be like, "Where the fuck did everybody go?"
Hey, peace out of that
we'll see
wedding
what I
early
do.
and catch these fights. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this exciting episode. It has been a lot of fun breaking down these fights from last week and this coming weekend. One last time, guys, follow us on social media at @new_MMA show on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, subscribe there as well. That wraps up this episode. It was a long one, but we had a lot of fun discussing these fights. Guys, any parting shots?
Definitely don't miss this weekend's fights. You have to pay for this weekend's fights, not like last weekend.
How nice would it have been for me if last weekend was the paid and this was the free one? I could have just put it on my phone at the wedding and been a happy man. Worked out completely backwards. Anyway, thank you for listening. Love you guys. Remember, tell a friend, tell anyone. We appreciate it.
See you next
We're
week.
out here.
Peace.
Peace.